Chapter 214. Rinbiao, what are you doing here? Li Zixuan had just come out of the workshop when he saw Wang Rinbiao walking over with Lung Yuyao, the ice beauty. He hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Wang Rinbiao smiled and cupped his hands. I just went to the Li residence to look for Lord Zhu, but I was told that you were in the workshop. It just so happens that my business has something to do with the workshop, so Yuyao and I came over. Li Zixuan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that someone sent him a pillow just as he was about to sleep? He quickly greeted without batting an eyelid. Haha, since Rinbiao has something to do, let's talk inside. Sambao, get someone to make tea. Lord Zhu, to be honest, I came here for the Tang Daily. Now that this newspaper is popular in Chang, and we have a very good foundation for cooperation, why don't you ask the workshop to increase the printing volume and provide me with a batch of newspapers? I will introduce the newspapers to other states and counties. How about it? After they found a room and sat down, Wang Rinbiao went straight to the point. Li Zixuan was delighted. His guess was right. This Wang Rinbiao was really coincidental. However, he didn't show it on his face and only pretended to be puzzled. Oh, Rinbiao is actually interested in newspapers? Wang Rinbiao smiled. Of course, the potential value of newspapers is huge. I have read 3 issues of the newspaper, and the content is indeed very interesting. Li Zixuan said, Haha, Rinbiao, how many copies do you want? To be honest, this morning, 2 Chang and traveling merchants bought 40,000 copies of newspapers from the workshop. Wang Rinbiao didn't look surprised at all. He said, I have heard of these 2 traveling merchants, and I guess they just want to make a short profit. Lord Zhu, what you need is a long-term cooperation, and I can satisfy that. I can buy 100,000 copies for the first batch, and then I can increase it according to the specific sales volume of each state and county. These newspapers will be sent to other states and counties through our Wang family's various business routes. Li Zixuan was taken aback. This was truly extravagant. He had asked for 100,000 servings, and this was only the first batch. Were all the children of aristocratic families so rich? Rinbiao, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to sell so many newspapers and that they will rot in your hands? Haha, the results of a newspaper have already been tested by the people of Chang. I don't believe that something that can become popular in Chang and will not be popular in other provinces and counties. After we introduced the scooter and drunken immortal to other places, they became popular among many people. Li Zixuan liked working with Wang Rinbiao because of his decisiveness, wisdom, and straightforwardness. Hearing Wang Rinbiao's words, he smiled and said, Good. Since Rinbiao is so straightforward, I will also be straightforward this time. The workshop will sell you at least 100,000 copies of the newspaper at the price of 9 copper coins per copy. Don't bargain with me. The 2 businessmen in the morning both bought it at the original price of 5 copper coins per copy. Wang Rinbiao had a look of joy and said happily, All right, then this one will thank Lord Zhu very much. But can Lord Zhu start supplying me with the first issue of the Tang Daily? The legend of a mortal's journey to immortality at the back of a newspaper is really interesting. If it is not complete, I am afraid that the people of other provinces and counties will not be satisfied. When Li Zixuan heard Wang Rinbiao say this, he knew that this guy was most likely a fan of novels. So he nodded and said with a smile, Yes, no problem. Wang Rinbiao suddenly said mysteriously, Lord Zhu, do you know who Leather Knight is? Li Zixuan was stunned and asked, What's wrong? Are you looking for him? I just wanted to write a few more chapters every day. Currently, there are only 3 chapters a day. As readers, it is really tiring to wait for him. Li Zixuan was sweating profusely. What kind of rush was this to meet a reader who was urging him to update in person? Fortunately, he used a pen name when he was writing novels. Otherwise, when he went out in the future, would he be kidnapped by readers? The next day, early morning, selling newspapers, the freshly printed De Tang Daily. Today's headlines, shocking strange case. The sealed mansion was heavily guarded. Why would a beautiful young woman mysteriously die in broad daylight? Gentlemen, if you want to know what happened after her death, you only need to spend 5 coins to read it. Now, every morning, the people of Chang, and had a new hobby, which was to buy newspapers and read them. As soon as the newspaper boy came out on his scooter, the people who woke up early enthusiastically surrounded him to buy the newspapers. Quick, give me 2 copies. I want to see how that beautiful young woman died. Give me 1 copy. My young master wants to read the latest legend of a mortal's journey to immortality. Give me 2 copies. My young master and young mistress want to read legend of a mortal's journey to immortality. After buying the newspapers so many times, everyone had learned how to queue up. This way, the efficiency increased. In a short while, dozens of people had received the newspapers. Not far away, a few scholars were reading the same newspaper as they walked. Brother Hua, quickly flip to the back and read Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Yes, I can't wait any longer. Don't. Look, today's newspaper seems a little different. Brother Hua, what's the difference? Why can't I see it? Look at the column in the middle of the newspaper. There are words. It says, Strange Culture opens today. There are 15 types of books on sale. De Shui is 110 coins per volume. Spring and Autumn Classic is 100 coins per volume. Analects of Confucius is 100 coins per volume. Mencius is 90 coins per volume. How can it be so cheap? Is there a mistake? Yes. De Shui is 1,400 coins per volume in other bookstores. Brother Hua, let me see. You must be wrong. Scholar Hua was doubting his life after being criticized by his companions. He could only pass the newspaper to his companions and say, Here it is. Here for you. Brother Meng, take a look for yourself. Scholar Meng quickly took the newspaper and looked at it carefully. Then he exclaimed, It's true. It's really so cheap. Is this strange culture crazy? Could it be that they are just making up the numbers and selling books with poor printing quality at a cheap price? Let's go and see. Yes. Let's go together. But the East Market is not open yet. Not only these scholars, 80% of the people who received the newspaper saw the advertisement. Strange culture, which had not yet opened, became a hot topic in Chang, and countless people were discussing it in private. Some said that it was playing to the gallery, some said that the shopkeeper was crazy, and some said that the price was wrong on the newspaper. However, most people chose to take a look for themselves. What if it was true? If they bought a copy and sold it, wouldn't they be able to make a huge profit? No matter how the people discussed it, Strange Culture became the fastest-selling shop in Chang and even the whole Tang Dynasty. Chapter 215. Clang, clang, clang. As the gongs and drums sounded for the opening of the markets in the East and West markets, countless commoners who had been waiting outside the gates filed in. Unlike the past, the commoners today were especially anxious and seemed to be fighting to be the first. Even the officials who had just sounded the gongs and drums were pushed to the side. Hey, don't push. What's there to push? The official stretched out his hand and shouted at the crowd. However, he was alone. Before his shout could spread, it was drowned out by the sea of people. A quarter of an hour later, when the first wave of people had all entered the Eastern Market, the official wiped the sweat from his forehead and said to his companion with lingering fear, Phew, why are these people so anxious today? Is there something new going on in East City today? Another official curled his lip and said carelessly, Who cares? Wangda, you stay here for a while. I'll go check out the latest legend of a mortal's journey to immortality. Hey, I just bought it this morning. Hey, why are you slacking off again? You call this slacking off? If worst comes to worst, I'll explain it to you after reading it. You won't be able to read it anyway. That's great. Dear friends, today is the official opening of Strange Culture. Today, all the books in the store will be 5% off for a limited time. Because the store has just opened, there are only 15 types of books. After a few days, there will be more and more books. I hope everyone can support us. The price of each book has been posted here. If there's anything you're not clear about, feel free to take a look. In the East Market, in front of a small vermilion building next to the Strange Interest Pavilion, Sun Huayuan said loudly to the crowd who had come because of his reputation. Since there was no suitable candidate for the time being, Li Zixuan sent Sun Huayuan over to act as the shopkeeper of the strange culture. Anyway, there was only an aisle between the strange culture pavilion and the strange culture pavilion. If anything happened there, Sun Huayuan would have enough time to deal with it. As soon as Sun Huayuan's voice fell, someone below went to look at the price list in front of the door. Then, there was a buzz of discussion in the crowd. Hey, the price is exactly the same as the one in the newspaper. The newspaper didn't lie. Yeah, it's incredible. Hey, isn't this shopkeeper's son? Why aren't you staying at Strange Interest Pavilion? Why are you here? That's right, Shopkeeper Sunday. What brings you here? Sun Huayuan gestured with his hands. After the crowd quieted down, he smiled and said, I'm indebted to the owner for thinking so highly of me. That's why I'm able to serve as the shopkeeper of 2 shops at the same time. As everyone can see, the price of the books in the core culture shop is less than 10% of the price of similar books in other bookstores. Our core culture shop's original intention is to allow all scholars in Great Tang to be able to read books. Therefore, all the books in the shop are limited to 1 book per person within 3 months, and all the books must be signed and stamped. Please abide by the rules and don't buy too many books under false names. We will check regularly. Once we find a customer who violates the rules, you will forever be blacklisted by Chitsu Culture. You will never be able to buy any books published by Chitsu Culture. Sun Huayuan's words made everyone's blood boil. In this era, there weren't many people who could afford to buy books. A single book could even buy a pretty maid. Books were truly more precious than life. Thus, no matter how dynasties changed, books were always the most valuable items. They were a kind of inheritance and also a kind of faith. It was somewhat similar to houses in modern society. No matter how quickly the value of the yuan depreciated, houses were still the most valuable and fastest appreciating commodity. In modern society, it was hard to find a house, and similarly, in ancient times, it was hard to find a book. Thus, when they heard Sun Huayuan say allow all scholars in Great Tang to be able to read books, many scholars who were usually refined in culture began to shout the loudest. Well said, Shopkeeper's son. Good job, Shopkeeper's son. Support Strange Interest Culture. Allow all scholars in Great Tang to be able to read books. Good. Thank you for your support. Strange Interest Culture is now officially open for business. Due to the limited space in the store, please follow your order in the queue and enter in batches to choose the books you want. Remember, each person can only buy 1 book of each type. Sun Huayuan clapped his hands and announced the official opening of Strange Interest Culture. The crowd below couldn't help but cheer loudly. The 10 or so lucky people at the front of the queue hurriedly rushed into the store in excitement. Among these 10 or so people were the scholars who had first discovered the advertisement in the newspaper in the morning. Wow, this book is actually made of high-quality Shin paper. Calculating it, how much is Strange Interest Culture going to lose with each book? After entering the store, these people hurriedly went to the bookshelves to find the books they wanted. One of the scholars picked up a book and flipped through it. When he touched the paper, he immediately exclaimed in disbelief. That's right, they actually used such high-quality paper. Just how high is the cost of this book? Isn't Strange Interest Culture going to lose money? That's indeed the case. No matter how rich the owner of Strange Interest Culture is, they can't possibly continue losing money like this, right? SSS. Quickly look at the words in this book. The horizontal and vertical lines are neat and tidy. It's even clearer and neater than the books in other bookstores. This printing quality requires a lot of engraving skills from the carving craftsman. Damn, I thought the reason why Strange Interest Culture's books were sold so cheaply was because they were crudely made. I didn't expect that whether it was the paper or the printing quality, it was so much better than other books. Moreover, it was sold so cheaply. Crazy. Crazy. This Strange Interest Culture is really crazy. Such good books at such a price. I really want to buy all of them. Unfortunately, I can only buy 1 of each. Shopkeeper, give me 1 of each of these 15 books. Shopkeeper, I also want 1 of each. Here, I'll give you the money. Sun Huayuan replied with a smile. Okay, a total of 1,701. Hey, Brother Hua, I didn't bring enough money when I went out today. Can you lend me some? Don't worry, I'll return it as soon as I get back. The scholar touched his shriveled pockets and suddenly looked dejected. It was not easy to get to the front of the queue, but he did not bring any money. What a painful realization. He looked at his classmate and friend and quickly asked for help. No one could bear to give up such a good opportunity. If he could buy it, it would be a profit. Okay, here for you. The scholar, surnamed Hua, thought for a moment, and then handed a golden bean to that person. Hey, Brother Hua, lend me some money too. I still need 501. If I don't buy such a good book today, I'm afraid I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Yeah, Brother Hua, you can't leave us in the lurch. The other two scholars saw the situation and quickly went up to him. Such a good book. Even if you have to borrow money, you have to buy it. If you miss this village, there won't be another shop like this. Chapter 2:16. The first batch of people who went in almost all bought a book of each kind. When they came out, they all carried a thick stack of books and were all grinning from ear to ear. The people who were queuing behind were secretly anxious when they saw this situation. The people in front had bought a lot, so it was very likely that they would have nothing when it was their turn. Sun Huayuan couldn't help but frown and say, "Everyone, please try your best to pick the books you need and leave some opportunities for others. In the future, the supply of books from strange culture will definitely increase. You don't have to rush to buy every book." Although he said that, not many people listened to him. The people who went in later still returned with a full load. If the supply of books today reached 100 types, these people might really buy 100 books. It was like a modern house. A house on a certain street was generally priced at around 8 million yuan. If a developer suddenly announced that his house in the same area would only cost 6 or 700,000 yuan, wouldn't many people go crazy just thinking about that scene? Even if the developer reminded them that there would be many houses at this price in the future and that they shouldn't rush, would people believe it? They only knew that this price was unique. If they could get it, they would make a profit. Who cared about whether they needed it or not? Who cared about the price in the future? Butcher Zhao, why did you buy so many books? Are you illiterate? A burly man at the back of the queue couldn't help but scold a fierce-looking man who had just come out of strange culture with books in his arms. Although I'm illiterate, these books are nice to look at home. Smell the fragrance of the books. Look at the paper. TSK. It's so cheap. Wouldn't it be a pity not to buy it? Besides, blacksmith foam, aren't you King illiterate as well? Why are you here to join in the fun? Butcher Zhao hugged the books he had just bought and scolded back with a look of superiority. Blacksmith Feng straightened his neck and said, "Although I'm illiterate, my son is literate. Can't I buy books for my Ahu? You're a butcher. Isn't it a waste to buy so many books?" "Bah, you're the one who's wasting. Your Ahu is only 8 years old. How many words can he recognize? Stop bragging here." The two burly men began to argue with each other as they spoke. A disgrace to the educated, a disgrace to the educated. How can such books of sages be wantonly trampled by you? A young scholar dressed in coarse cloth saw this scene and couldn't help but rebuke angrily with a flushed face. "That's right. All of you are illiterate. Why are you fighting with us for the sage books? That's right. These books are for us scholars. What are you guys doing here?" The young scholar's words immediately resonated with many of the poor scholars. These people were the people who were in need of cheap books in strange culture. Usually, they couldn't afford to buy books, so they had to endure the supercilious looks of others and borrow here and there. Today, they finally heard that there were cheap books for sale here, but when they came to take a look, they saw that there were so many irrelevant people rushing to buy them. Wasn't this just causing trouble? People like Butcher, Zhao, and Blacksmith Feng, who were illiterate, probably came to buy books with the intention of reselling them to others for a large sum of money. This was because these books could be easily sold for 10 times the profit. It was impossible for others not to be tempted. This was a bit like some of the property speculators in modern times. They didn't buy a house to live in, but to resell it for money. For the time being, people like Butcher Zhao could be called book speculators. Butcher Zhao and Blacksmith Feng were still arguing with each other a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, they were denounced by dozens of scholars. Even though the Tang people revered martial arts, these scholars still had a very high status in the eyes of these common people. The two of them looked at each other and were a little scared. They planned to escape with their tails between their legs. Oomph. Who said that only scholars can buy books? Can't I buy it for my child? Can't I buy it and learn it myself? Who was born knowing how to read? In any group, there were 2 or 3 daring people. Butcher Zhao and blacksmith Feng were scared, but it didn't mean that the other book speculators would be scared. Just look at them. Seeing that they were about to become street rats that everyone wanted to beat, a curly-bearded man couldn't help but refute. Big Brother Huang is right. Can't I buy books for my child? Did I violate any laws of the Tang Dynasty? You're not convinced? Are you going to scold your mother when she buys books for you? This was the type of person who scolded the streets. Old Wang's wife is right. Besides, shopkeeper's son said that everyone in the Tang Dynasty should be able to afford to read. What's wrong with us buying books and learning them ourselves? This was the type who secretly changed the concept. You're spouting nonsense. Shopkeeper's son clearly said that all the scholars in the Tang Dynasty should be able to afford to read. You're not a scholar. Immediately, a quick-witted scholar reprimanded. Right. Shopkeeper's son already said that these books are prepared for scholars. What are you all doing here? Only scholars can buy books. All of you, go away. Why do you care if I buy books for my son? That's right. You're not convinced? If you're not convinced, come and beat me up. Pooey, such a shrew. You're simply unreasonable. Who are you calling a shrew? Husband, someone is scolding your wife. Aren't you going to do anything about it? Who? Who dares to scold my ruhua? You're asking for a beating. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. You dare to hit someone? So what if I hit you? As a scholar, your mouth isn't clean. You're not worthy of being called a scholar. Yes, hit him. You have no respect for the law. You all really have no respect for the law. The people on both sides blamed each other. The more they argued, the more chaotic they became. In the end, when one of them made a move, it was as if a spark had been thrown into a pile of gunpowder, causing an explosion. In the end, the argument escalated into a group brawl. Sun Huayan, who was busy collecting money and maintaining order, was caught off guard. Stop, all of you stop. No more fighting. Whoever fights again is not allowed to buy books in the strange culture in the future. When Sun Huayuan heard the commotion outside, he came out to take a look. Immediately, his face turned pale with fright, and he hurriedly shouted for them to stop. However, even though he had threatened them, it wasn't enough to calm them down. Sun Huayuan couldn't help but sweat profusely. As he shouted for them to stop, he directed the servants in the shop to pull apart the fighting crowd. But today, there were 700 to 800 people queuing up at the strange culture. His manpower was like a small boat in the sea. It was completely useless. In the end, the commotion alarmed a group of martial marquis who were patrolling the streets. The leader ordered his subordinates to call for reinforcements while he led the rest of the martial marquis into the battle. All of you stop. In broad daylight, you actually dare to fight on the streets. All of you stop immediately. Otherwise, we'll bring you back to the yamen for punishment. The leader of the martial marquis pulled out a large blade from his waist and shouted coldly. His voice was much louder than Sun Huayuan's voice. The noisy crowd immediately froze. Some of the more timid ones exclaimed in surprise. That's right. Not good. Martial Marquis is here. Quickly stop. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. Martial Marquis is here. Master Martial Marquis, I didn't fight. This has nothing to do with me. I didn't fight either. A moment later, another large group of martial marquis rushed over and surrounded the fighting crowd. The two sides finally stopped fighting and the scene calmed down. Don't move. Who is the shopkeeper of this shop? Come out and answer me. The leader of the young martial marquis saw that his companions had finally arrived. He felt a little more confident, so he stood out and said coldly. Chapter 217, Imperial College. In a mathematics school, Lisa Xuan was teaching the students. There was a weekly exam tomorrow, so he was very serious in his lecture. The other students were listening even more seriously. Facing this binary linear equation, we must first observe its structure and find a way to eliminate the elements to reduce the number of unknowns. As for how to do this, let's look at an example. Cough, cough. Chung chumo, pay attention. Tomorrow's weekly exam will definitely have a binary linear equation. Lisa Schwan was about to turn his head to write an example on the blackboard when he suddenly caught a glimpse of Chung Chumo's little tricks. He could not help but scold him. Chung Chumo was greatly embarrassed. He quickly straightened his body and puffed out his chest, pretending to be a good student. However, in his heart, he was secretly criticizing Lisa Schwan for being a bad brother. Bang, bang. At this time, there was a sound of knocking on the door from outside the classroom. Lisa Schwan looked up and saw San Bao standing by the door. She was carefully looking at him as if she had something to say. Lisa Schwan thought that something must have happened. Otherwise, San Bao would not be so stupid as to disturb him during class time. Thus, he said to the students, "Wait a moment." Then he walked out of the door. At this time, he realized that behind San Bao was a person in blue clothes and a gray hat. Lisa Schwan recognized this attire at a glance. It was the staff attire of the Strange Interest Pavilion. He could not help but be shocked. Could it be that something happened at the Strange Interest Pavilion? San Bao, what happened? Lisa Schwan brought the two of them to a cypress tree in the courtyard and hurriedly asked, "Young master, shopkeeper's son sent Erhu to say that something happened at the Strange Interest Pavilion. He wants you to go there." San Bao pulled out the servant behind her and said to her young master, "Erhu, what exactly happened to the Strange Interest Pavilion?" "Boss, in front of the Strange Interest Pavilion, many customers who bought books are fighting." Even Wu Ho was alarmed. "Shopkeeper's son sent me to ask you, what should we do?" "What?" Lisa Schwan exclaimed with his eyes wide open. "Wait, I'll go to the dormitory to inform the students, and then I'll go there myself. You can tell me the details on the way there." On the other side, in front of the strange culture, "Young General, I am Sun Huayuan, the shopkeeper of this shop. Thank you for bringing your men here in time to prevent the situation from worsening." Sun Huayuan walked up to the leading Wu Ho and cupped his hands. The young Marshal Marquis quickly stepped aside, not accepting his bow. He looked at Sun Huayuan, squinted his eyes, and said meaningfully, "I'm only the right Marshal Marquis Wei Ec Go, and am not worthy of the title of general. Since shopkeeper's son has opened a shop to do business, then you must restrain your customers. How can you gather people to cause trouble and disturb public order? Could it be that you think our Wu Ho government's planks are vegetarians?" The left and right Wu Ho Wei of the Tang Dynasty was a department that was responsible for the security of Chang. It was similar to the function of a modern police station. The left and right Wu Ho Wei had one general each, and two generals each. Below them, there were different officials. Sigu was only a minor 8th rank official, and indeed was not worthy of the title of general. Sun Huayuan had been a shopkeeper for such a long time, and naturally knew that the king of hell was easy to provoke, and the little demons were hard to deal with. He did not change his title, and quietly gave the Wu Ho a few golden beans, and said with a smile, "Young general is right. Today's matter is indeed due to our strange culture's lack of consideration. I've troubled all of you to personally come here. This is just a small gift, and I'll treat all of you to tea." The Wu Ho's eyes flashed, but his face did not show it. He pointed out, "Shopkeeper's son, this time we have mobilized over 100 brothers." The meaning of these words was clearly saying that there were too many brothers here today, and the money you gave was not enough to divide. Sun Huayuan's eyes flashed with a trace of anger, but he suppressed his anger and waited for his young master to come quickly. "Then how much does young general think is appropriate?" The young Wu Ho smiled proudly and was about to speak when he heard a voice full of energy from outside the crowd. "Who dares to cause trouble at the foot of the Son of Heaven?" The crowd automatically dispersed, and the young Wu Ho saw the person who came and was shocked. He hurriedly went forward and bowed. This subordinate pays his respects to great General Yuchi. The person who came was Yuchi Jingda, the only great general of the right Wu Ho Guard. For such a big shot to personally come, the young Wu Ho could not help but be surprised. Get up. Tell me, what happened here?" Yuchi Jingda's face darkened, and he asked in a deep voice. Chang and city's public security had always been good. Today, a brawl between hundreds of people had suddenly occurred, and, as the head of the capital's public security bureau, he had lost a lot of face. Uncle Yuchi. The young Wu Ho was about to speak when another voice came from outside the crowd. It was Lisa Xuan, who had finally rushed over. On the way, he listened to Air, whose detailed explanation of the ins and outs of the matter, and his heart could not help but feel a burst of irritation. Before this batch of books had been sold, he had already considered book speculators like Butcher Zhao, so he had let Sun Huaiyuan introduce a limited purchase policy. However, he did not expect that it would still arouse the dissatisfaction of some people, and in the end, it had caused a big fight. He had originally wanted to do something good for the people of the Tang Empire, but in the end, a good thing had turned bad, and he had even alarmed the Wu Ho. There might even be court officials impeaching him for disturbing public security tomorrow. This was really a thankless task for him. When he came to the door of the quirky culture, he happened to see Yu Qigong. Although he did not know that Yu Qigong was the right Wu Ho Guard Great General, with his big shot in the military, wouldn't it be easier to send the Wu Ho in front of him away? Otherwise, he would have to trouble himself to go up personally to show off and slap faces. How tiring would that be? Little Xian, why are you here? Yuchi Jingda looked at Lisa Xuan and asked curiously. Hee, Uncle Yuchi, this little nephew just opened this shop today. Now that something has happened, of course this little nephew has to come over. Lisa Xuan smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. When a young Wu Ho beside him heard this, his heart instantly turned cold, and he cursed inwardly. He had just asked for some benefits from the shopkeeper of this shop, and the owner of this shop was actually related to his superior. Wouldn't that mean that he was dead meat? Yuchi Jingda raised his eyes to look at the plaque behind him, and only then did he let out an "oh" and said, "Quirky culture. No wonder this old man only knew that the quirky pavilion was your business, but I didn't expect that you would open another quirky culture. Kid, just what kind of things are you selling in this shop? How did you cause such a big commotion? If the other court officials knew about this, they might impeach you again." Lisa Xuan scratched his head and said embarrassedly, Uncle Yuchi is right. Today it was just these people in front of me who started fighting because they wanted to buy books. This little nephew will pay attention in the future, and I guarantee that this kind of thing will not happen again. Uncle, please wait a moment and allow this little nephew to say a few words to these customers. Chapter 2:18. Yes, these people actually fought over a few books. It's indeed too outrageous. Little Xian, you have to make things clear with them, or else, if they're the next time, this old man will bring all of them back to the martial Marquis government for punishment. Hearing the reason for the fight, Yuchi Jingda could not help but frown. Lisa Xuan hurriedly cupped his hands in acknowledgement. He walked to the front of the crowd and looked at the scholars and commoners who were surrounded by the Wu Ho officials. Many of them had disheveled clothes, bruised noses, and swollen faces. It was clear that they had been injured in the previous conflict. Lisa Xuan could not help but feel speechless. Wasn't it just a few books? Did these people really need a fight? Shopkeeper's son, who started it? Lisa Xuan coldly asked. Most of the people who opened a shop wanted to make money peacefully. No matter what the reason was, these people should not have fought in front of his shop. This was also slapping his face, so of course he would not be happy. Young master, I heard the people below say that it was this couple who started it. Sun Huaiyuan walked forward and pointed at the couple in the crowd. Lisa Xuan nodded and looked at the crowd. With a cold face, he loudly said, "Humph. Friends, the reason why I opened Chitu Culture was to solve the problem of the commoners of Great Tang having difficulty in studying and the problem of expensive books. My good intentions were treated as ill intent by some people, and they fought in front of my shop. Our Chitu Culture will not welcome such people in the future. Shopkeeper's son, let the people below remember the faces of these two people and investigate their families. In the future, no one from their family is allowed to take half a step into Chitu Culture." "Yes, young master." Shopkeeper's son hurriedly cupped his hands in acknowledgement. Lisa Xuan's words made the couple's face and ears turn red. The tall man could also see that Lisa Xuan had a strong background and was not a person to be trifled with. He did not dare to refute and pulled his wife and prepared to leave. But the fierce woman was a little unhappy. She shook off her husband's hand and pointed at Lisa Xuan with one hand on her waist. "Why? Mother, it's not like I'm shortchanging you by buying books in a shop. Why can't I buy books in a shop? Ruhua, don't say any more. The tall man hurriedly came over to pull his wife. Let go of me. I insist on saying. You ask me why? Just because I'm the owner of this shop. I can let whoever I want in. Just because I'm a baron personally conferred by the emperor. If I say you're not welcome here, you can only leave. You're not convinced? Lisa Schwan shouted loudly, carrying a bit of internal energy, shaking the eardrums of the dozen or so people relatively close to him until their eardrums buzzed. Yuchi Jingda couldn't help looking at him in astonishment. Lisa Schwan didn't have a good impression of this shrew in front of him. He disdained to fight with women, but he didn't want to cause too much trouble. That was why he said those words to frighten the two of them, telling them to get out of here as soon as possible. Lordly is right. You are not welcome here. Could this Lordly be the owner of Strange Interest Pavilion, the youth who invented the curved plow and was conferred a baron by the emperor? Someone heard Lisa Schwan call himself a baron and recalled that the only newly conferred baron title was the Baron of Lantian County, so he couldn't help but guess. You just realized it now. I've already seen Lord Lee when Strange Interest Pavilion opened last time. It really is lordly. If it weren't for the curved plow, my child's uncle's fields probably wouldn't have made it in time for the spring plowing this year. We have to thank Lordly for this. That's right. This Lordly is really a good person. He just helped so many farmers, and now he's helping the scholars. It's a pity that there are still people who don't know what's good for them and actually fight here. Isn't that right? These people who fight and cause trouble are really hateful. As word of mouth spread, more and more people recognized Lisa Schwan's true identity. Thinking about the incident with the curved plow, most of them were indebted to Lisa Schwan. Therefore, more and more people denounced the unscrupulous couple. You are not welcome here. The two of you should leave quickly. Get out of here. You're not allowed to buy books. That's right. How can the land of the saints be trampled on by these shrews? Come home with me. Don't make a scene here. The woman still wanted to refute Lisa Schwan, but she was forcefully pulled away by her husband. Lisa Schwan asked his servant to pull up the scholar who was knocked to the ground by the couple. He looked at the unlucky scholar whose face was covered in blood and whose hair was disheveled. He couldn't help but frown. He was so focused on chasing the two people away that he forgot to ask them to pay for the medical expenses. What a pain in the ass. He quickly went to talk to Yuchi Gong and asked him to send someone to bring the couple back to the yamen for questioning. He couldn't let them off so easily for beating people on the street. What's your name? After talking to Yuchi Gong, Lisa Schwan looked at the scholar and asked. The unlucky scholar hurriedly tidied up his appearance. However, it would have been better if he didn't do it. After doing it, his hair became even more messy. He was afraid that Lisa Schwan would be anxious, so he hurriedly replied. In reply to Lord Ju, I'm Lin Zaheo. I'm sorry. The ancient people value their appearance much more than the modern people. This person's current appearance was really rude. Lisa Schwan shook his head and said with a pleasant expression, although today's matter was caused by that couple, in the end, it was our strange culture that didn't consider it carefully. How about this? As an apology, our strange culture will pay for all your medical expenses. In addition, we'll give you a set of books that were sold today and a purple membership card of the strange culture. This membership card also has the same privileges in the strange culture. What do you think? Lin Zaheo was instantly stunned. He never thought that there would be such benefits after being beaten up. He had heard before that a purple membership card of the Strange Culture Pavilion cost 100 strings of cash. This was really a blessing in disguise. This beating was King worth it. Thank you, Lord Ju. Thank you, Lord Ju. How could he not agree to such a good thing? Thus, he hurriedly bowed and thanked him. Lisa Schwan waved his hand and asked Sun Huayuan to take him to see a doctor. The crowd below the stage sucked in a breath of cold air. They were all shocked by this huge gift. Oh my God, that's a purple membership card. Not only is this lordly kind to people, but he's also really generous. Yeah, if only I was the one who was beaten up by that couple. Lisa Schwan looked at the people below. Compared to Lin Zaheo's serious injuries, there were quite a few of them who had minor injuries. Thus, he said, I deeply apologize to the friends who were injured in front of the Strange Culture Pavilion today. This is our early work that was not done well. Later, the friends who were injured can line up to receive a green membership card of the Strange Culture Pavilion. In addition, I repeat, if anyone dares to cause trouble here again, this county's men will definitely not let you off so easily like today. I will make sure that you won't be able to stay in the entire Chong and city. Oh, thank you, Lord Li. Haha, I was injured just now. Haha, I was injured too. Bah. Go Sheng. Your face was only scratched by a fingernail. How dare you say that? When the injured crowd saw Lin Zihao leave, they thought that they had nothing to do with it. After all, they had only suffered minor injuries. However, they were still a little disappointed. When they heard Li Zishuan's words, they immediately cheered loudly in surprise. They were glad that they had just been injured. This was probably the first time in their lives that they were glad that they had been injured. You're not allowed to deliberately create scars. Li Zishuan saw that there were two idiots behind him. They clenched their fists and gestured at each other's faces. They were eager to try. He couldn't help but shout out to stop them. Ta! Chapter 219. In front of the Strange Culture. After Li Zishuan comforted the injured, he thought for a while and said, "Today, there may be many of you who don't need books at all. You came here purely because the books are cheap. Perhaps there are also some who want to resell and make a fortune. I don't care if you really need the books or want to make money. Since I'm open for business, there's no reason for me to refuse customers. But for those who really want to buy books, we'll make it convenient for you. In the future, no matter where you are from, as long as you have your student identification card, you can queue up at the Strange Culture. We'll give priority to the students and members." Good. This way, it'll be easier for us to buy books. Thank you, Lord Ju. The world's poor children will remember Lord Ju's kindness. Yes, thank you, Lord Ju. As soon as Li Zishuan's voice fell, there was a burst of cheers from the crowd. Most of them were the voices of the students. They came here today because of the fame and found that there were really such cheap books. They couldn't help but feel happy and worried. They were happy because they could afford the books, but they were worried because there would be a lot of people who would rush to buy such cheap books. Now, that Li Zishuan took the initiative to give priority to the students, it would greatly increase their chances of buying books. How could they not be happy? When the rest of the people heard this, their faces darkened, but no one raised any objections. Ever since they recognized that the young man in front of them was Li Zishuan, who invented the curved plow, their eyes were filled with gratitude. Some of them even had some faint regret in their hearts. Compared to Li Zishuan, who wholeheartedly did so much for the farmers and the students, their way of doing things seemed a little selfish. Therefore, many people began to regret that they came here with the intention of reselling the books to make money. But there were still many people who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Li Zishuan couldn't do anything about these people, but he still advised, for those who want to make money by reselling books about strange culture, I only want to say that if you want to make money, you should sell the books in your hands as soon as possible. In the future, there will be more and more of these cheap books in our workshop, and their prices will be lower and lower. In less than 3 years, the majority of the people in Great Tang will be able to afford books. At that time, books will no longer be an expensive item that the common people can't afford. In the next 3 years, books will be as valuable as scallions. I, Li Zishuan, am a man of my word. Li Zishuan's words were powerful and resonant, but to the others, it was no different from a sudden clap of thunder. Ever since Kai Lun invented papermaking in the Han Dynasty, for the past 600 years, the price of books had always been unattainable for ordinary people. Only those rich people could afford to buy some, but they usually kept them at home to show their noble status. Now that Li Zishuan had said that within 3 years, these cheap and high-quality books would be sold all over Great Tang, and that the price of books would be as high as scallions, many people thought that it was a fantasy. How could the high and mighty prices of books suddenly fall from the sky? It was simply unbelievable. So, everyone can buy books about strange culture in the future? That's great. But Lordly said that the price of books would be as high as scallions. Isn't that too exaggerated? I don't really believe it. I don't really believe it either. I believe it. Lordly will definitely do what he says. Before the curved plow came out, who would have thought that there would be a divine plow that could be pulled by human power? But Lordly did it. This time, I believe that Lordly will be able to do it too, and by then, my children will be able to read and recognize words. Yes, that's right. I also believe in Lordly. But this time, it's obviously more difficult than the last time. Everyone was discussing animatedly. Some were doubtful, and some believed it. When Yuchi Jingda heard this, he was so shocked that his beard almost fell off. He pulled Li Zixuan over and hurriedly said, "Little Xian, you can't say such things." Throughout the ages, it's not that the monarchs and ministers have never thought of lowering the price of books, but it's extremely difficult to do so. How can you do it with just your family strength? Although I don't know where you got this batch of cheap books from and how much you lost, your scale is still small. If you want to completely lower the price of books in Great Tang, you're far from enough. Li Zixuan smiled confidently and said, "Uncle Yuchi, don't worry. Since this nephew dares to say such words, I'm sure that I can do it. Let me tell you a secret. Now, our workshop has already reduced the cost of paper to less than 10% of other workshops. That's why there are such cheap books being sold today." Yuchi Jingda was shocked. He stared at him and said, "There's such a thing? How's the production of paper in your workshop? Is it possible to supply it?" Li Zixuan nodded and said, "This is our workshop's newest paper-making technology. His Majesty has already seen it. As for the production, the current production is obviously insufficient. But as our workshop further expands its production, it will definitely be able to supply it." Yuchi Jingda was completely shocked. He stood on the spot and muttered to himself, "You brat, you really have some ability. Luckily, I didn't hoard too many books at home. Otherwise, when I see the price of books being as cheap as scallions, wouldn't I die of discomfort?" Sigh, if there's really a day like what you said, where everyone can read books, then my Great Tang will become an unprecedented flourishing age. Even the Qin Emperor's Hanwu era can't compare. Huh, what's your name? After Yuchi Jingda sighed with emotion for a while, he suddenly asked the Wu Ho government Sigu. He was the right Wu Ho Wei government's great general. How could he know this kind of minor 8th rank official? Replying to the great general, "This general is Pang Feiji." That Sigu hurriedly cupped his fist and answered. However, from the corner of his eye, he still carefully glanced at Sun Huayan. In his heart, he kept praying that shopkeeper Sun wouldn't complain to Yuchi Jingda. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would be in trouble. When Li Zixuan heard this person's name, he almost burst out laughing. Pang Feiji, or perhaps Pang Feiji. Brat, your name has a lot of meaning. Yuchi Jingda didn't have as many messy thoughts as Li Zixuan. He calmly grunted and then said, "Pang Feiji, from now on, you will be responsible for the security of this strange culture. You will bring people to patrol this place every day. You will not allow anyone to fight, cause trouble, or do anything illegal here. You will also be responsible for the safety of the books in this shop. You will prevent thieves from stealing or destroying books. If anything goes wrong, I will hold you responsible." Yuchi Jingda said the last sentence with a stern expression. Pang Feiji was so frightened that his body trembled. He hurriedly bowed and accepted the order. This general obeys. There definitely won't be any mistakes. Chapter 220. Hearing Pang Feiji's straightforward reply, Yuchi Jingda nodded in satisfaction and said, "Little Xian, Pang Feiji will be given to you in the future. If anyone comes to cause trouble, just let him go. If it doesn't work, there's still me and His Majesty. As for the Wu Marquis government and the Ministry of War, I will personally report to them. You don't have to worry about that." "Thank you, Uncle Yuchi, but wouldn't this be too much of fuss? After all, Strange Culture is just a bookstore." Li Zixuan expressed his gratitude towards Yuchi Jingda's good intentions, but to let Pang Feiji, the head of the local police station, be the head of security for a store, wasn't it a bit too pretentious? Yuchi Jingda laughed coldly and said, "You really don't know what to fear. Do you know how many people's benefits have been harmed by your cheap books? Including many aristocratic families, courtiers, bookstores, and rich merchants. It's not like I haven't experienced this deception before. I know the faces of those people better than you. So what? Do they dare to do anything illegal under the feet of the emperor? Yuchi Jingda shook his head and said, if you can't do it openly, you can do it secretly. Anyway, you can't go wrong by being more careful. Li Zixuan nodded thoughtfully. East Market, South Main Street. Virtuous bookstore. In the past, this place was really filled with scholars chatting and laughing, and there were no unskilled people coming and going. But today it was really deserted. Not only were there no scholars, there weren't even any unskilled people. 2 servants in the store sat in front of the door in boredom, looking at the few people on the street. Occasionally, they would slap away a few mosquitoes on the table. Inside sat a middle-aged man in purple. At this moment, his brows were tightly furrowed as he looked at the empty bookstore. He was silent, and the atmosphere was very oppressive. Oh, this guest, what book do you need? At this moment, a white-clothed scholar suddenly came in. The 2 servants quickly stood up and greeted him. The middle-aged man in purple quickly hid the worry on his face and stood up to greet the scholar. The scholar nodded and didn't say anything. He went straight to the bookshelf to look for a book. A moment later, he came out with a book called Zhuozhuan. Shopkeeper, how much is this Zhuozhuan? The middle-aged man in purple hurriedly replied with a smile. Sir, this Zhuozhuan is sold for 1,700 copper coins. If you're sincere, I can sell it to you for 1,600 copper coins. He saw that the business today was too bad, so he decided to lower the price at the last minute, hoping to keep this customer. The young scholar frowned and said unhappily, although my family doesn't lack money, I don't want to be cheated by you for no reason. I heard that there's a culture not far from here that sells Zhuozhuan for 110 copper coins. It's fine if you sold it at such a high price before, but how can you cheat your customers like this? I'm not buying anymore. With that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Hey, dear customer, it's not what you think. Sigh. The shopkeeper hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop him, but to no avail. He could only sigh. Shopkeeper, this is already the 5th customer today who has said so. A manservant couldn't help but complain. Shut up. I sent a FA to scout for news. Why isn't this kid back yet? The shopkeeper scolded angrily, then anxiously looked outside the door. Shopkeeper, I'm back. At this moment, a series of hurried footsteps came from outside, and then a manservant in a navy blue robe ran in. The shopkeeper hurriedly pulled him over and asked, "Fa, how is it? Did you get any news?" Huff, huff. Fa continuously patted his chest a few times, panted a few times, then said, "Shopkeeper, there's a long queue over at Chi2 Culture. Their books are really cheap. The price is not even 10% of ours. Many people are fighting over the books. Even the people from Wuhou government are alarmed." Hearing this, the shopkeeper's expression changed. After a while, he asked word by word, "Then how many of these books do they have?" Fa scratched his head and said, "Shouldn't be many, about 300 to 400 books, or else there wouldn't be so many people fighting over them." The shopkeeper heaved a sigh of relief. Another manservant beside him asked, "Shopkeeper, should we also reduce the price? Or else no one will buy books." "Pa!" The shopkeeper angrily patted the manservant's head and said unhappily, Reduce. How do we reduce? If we reduce to the same price as them, we'll be losing money. Quickly go to work, wipe the bookshelves. I don't believe that Chi2 Culture has so many cheap books. Furthermore, since they're selling them so cheap, the quality of the books must be shoddy. In the future, when those cheap people wake up, they'll still come here to buy books." "Shopkeeper is right. You're wise." The manservant rubbed his head and quickly brought the other 2 to wipe the bookshelves. This situation was common in other bookstores in Chang and City. The impact of Chi2 Culture's books on the entire book market was starting to show. Taiji Palace, Suite du Hall. Lier had just finished the morning court and was about to change into his regular clothes. At this moment, Zhao Song hurried over and bowed. "Your Majesty, we just received news that there was a large-scale brawl in the East Market. Old General Yuchi has personally led the right marquee guards to quell the chaos." Lier paused, and then said with an ugly expression, Chong and Chong in. Since the establishment of the Tang Empire, the imperial court has put in a lot of effort to improve the security of Chong and city. These years, there's been a great improvement. Why are there so many people causing trouble today? Zhao Song, have you found out the reason? Your Majesty, it's said that cheat Xiu culture, which is opened by Lier, is selling a large number of cheap books today. The price is less than 10% of other bookstores, so it attracted many people in Chong and city to fight over them. In the process, some people were afraid that they wouldn't be able to get the books, so they couldn't help but quarrel and even fight. This caused a large-scale brawl. Zhao Song explained everything in detail. Hee, I didn't expect this brat to be so fast. He just came up with the paper machine a while ago, and he's printing so many books in just a few days. Not bad, not bad, Lier exclaimed in surprise. Then he frowned and said, Zhao Song, immediately draft a decree to reprimand Lantian County's Li Zishuan for not doing his job properly, opening a store without permission, failing to restrain his customers, causing a brawl and disrupting public order. He shall be locked up for 7 days and be paid a salary for 3 months as punishment. Yes, Your Majesty. Zhao Song cupped his hands and accepted the order. However, he was puzzled. Lier didn't seem to be angry about this, so why did he have to issue a decree to reprimand Li Zishuan? Although he had doubts in his heart, Zhao Song didn't ask. He knew his duty. After Zhao Song left, Lier leaned on the couch and muttered, Hey, I'm doing this for your own good. You better know what's good for you. Chapter 2:21. What a scandal. What a scandal. Tomorrow, I will impeach this kid for disrupting public order. Wei Zheng returned to his residence after the morning court. When he heard about the incident that happened in front of the Strange Culture store in the East Market, he was so angry that he slammed the table. Pei Shi glared at Wei Zheng and said angrily, How dare you? You don't know how many poor children have benefited from this kid's actions. If you impeach him, let's see if the poor scholars in the world will be happy. Wei Zheng glared at her and said, But this commotion was caused by Li Zishuan's lack of consideration. If we don't punish him severely, what will happen to the laws of the Tang Empire? Pei Shi was speechless at her husband's stubbornness. After a while, she said, Old master, you are also from a poor family. You should know how much the poor children crave books. Why do you still want to make things difficult for this kid? When Wei Zheng heard this, he frowned and hesitated. After a long time, he said firmly, Merit is a crime. Mistakes are mistakes. Li Zishuan's printing of books to benefit the poor children is a merit. But his carelessness caused the customers in the store to fight and disrupt public order. That is a mistake. He should be rewarded for his merits and punished for his mistakes. I will write a letter to ask for his merits, but I will also write a letter to impeach him for his mistakes. This old thing's stubbornness truly angered Pei Shi. She angrily snorted and turned around to leave, leaving behind only one sentence. Humph. Impeach him if you want. You will sleep in the study tonight. Hey, madam, listen to your husband's reasoning. Old master, this is what happened. Once the cheap books of the Strange Culture were released, all the big and small bookstores in Chong and city were unable to resist. We can't compete with them in terms of price. Chongren Square, Zhangsun Wuji's residence. The shopkeeper of the Mingda bookstore was complaining to Zhangsun Wuji. From his tone, the Mingda bookstore should belong to the Zhangsun family. Zhangsun Wuji's expression didn't change much. It was as if the bookstore's poor business had nothing to do with him. He slowly took a sip of tea and said calmly, Wu Mingyang, why are you in such a hurry? Calm down when something happens. Although Zhangsun Wuji's tone was calm, Wu Mingyang shuddered when he heard it. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said solemnly, Old master is right. Zhangsun Wuji waved his hand. Have a seat. Do you know how many books there are in this batch of Strange Culture? And why were their books so cheap? As far as I know, if all the books are sold at such a price, I'm afraid that no bookstore in Chong and city will not lose money. Li Zishuan dares to sell like this. Is he planning to make a loss? It had to be said that there were many people in history who called Zhangsun Wuji an old fox, and there was a certain logic to it. No matter what situation he was in, he could always use the calmest thinking to find the most crucial point of the problem. This was the most terrifying aspect of him. Replying to Master, this lowly one has already investigated. There are a total of 15 types of books in this batch of books from Strange Culture. There are about 300 books of each type. All of them have been sold out today. As for whether there will be such books in the future, this lowly one does not know. Also, their books are all printed from Strange Interest Pavilion's workshop. This lowly one also does not know what their cost is and whether they will lose money by selling like this. Wu Mengyang replied seriously. Zhang Sun Wuji frowned and thought for a moment, then said, "Then let's wait and see." In the afternoon, Li Er sent someone to the Li residence to pass down a decree, carrying out a round of criticism and education for Li Zishuan. The others in the family were frightened by this decree, but after Li Zishuan heard the decree, his heart bloomed with joy. Being grounded at home might be a kind of torture to others, but to a homebody like Li Zishuan, it was a kind of great enjoyment. As for the 3 months of salary that was deducted by Li Er, Li Zishuan expressed that he did not care at all. Going to the Imperial College to teach was not his original intention. If he could stay at home and be a rich second generation, Li Zishuan was willing to give Li Er 100 million instead. Xin I feel that it's better if you don't open this bookstore. Our family is so rich. Why do you need to open a bookstore? If you cause so much trouble for no reason and lose the emperor's favor, then the losses will outweigh the gains. When old man Li heard Li Er's decree, a wave of anger rushed to his head. He wanted to give Li Zishuan a punishment to make a filial son package, but he was intimidated by his wife's power. He could only try his best to suppress his anger and persuade him calmly. Father, the opening of Strange Culture has nothing to do with money, but it carries the beliefs and dreams of many people. The Tang Dynasty needs Strange Culture, and the poor children of the world also need Strange Culture. This bookstore is not something that I can easily give up. His Majesty's decree today has no intention of punishing me. Otherwise, the punishment would not be so light. Moreover, His Majesty has given a lot of support behind this Strange Culture. It is not something that I can shut down just because I want to. His father was against his business, so Li Zishuan naturally had to think of a way to persuade him. Otherwise, the family would not get along well, and the gains would not make up for the losses. When Li Jingma heard his son's last sentence, he was shocked. He knew that he could not persuade him anymore. He could only sigh, shake his head, and leave. Now that his son was becoming more and more capable, he was more and more worried. Indeed, the more you gain, the more you lose. I'm on vacation. I don't know how to spend the money. I'll buy a Nokia in my left hand and a Motorola in my right. I sang wrong. Li Zishuan had given himself a long vacation, and he had just persuaded his father. Li Zishuan was in extremely good mood. When he returned to the western courtyard, he could not help but forget himself and start humming a song. Young master, why is the tune of your song so weird? Xiaoxi heard the weird song from afar. She went up and wiped Li Zishuan's face with a cold towel while laughing. Yes. Young master, your song is really bad. You sound like a hooligan when you sing. Xiaohe also came over to join in the fun. Li Zishuan smiled lecherously and said, Hee, since you said that I am a hooligan, then Xiaohe, you can come over tonight and serve me. No. Young mistress is about to marry into the family. Young master, how can you think about these things? Xiaohe quickly hugged her chest and jumped away as she exclaimed, Ha, this is what you get for your mouth. Li Zishuan took a pear and laughed. Then he said while eating, Xiaoxi, come in and help me grind it. The students of the School of Mathematics would have their weekly exam tomorrow. However, the exam papers were not out yet. Although he was grounded, the progress of the students could not be delayed. As for the lessons for the next few days, he would let Su Hongji replace him to teach them. Anyway, with his help, Su Hongji had almost completely understood the first volume of mathematics. He could openly slack off. Chapter 222. Shwa. The study room was silent. Only the sound of the brush tip rubbing against the paper could be heard. The paper was, of course, the new paper produced by the Chi-Chu Pavilion, and the brush was made from superfine weasel hair. After all, Lisa Schwan was writing questions and not practicing calligraphy. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too wasteful if he could only write a few words on a piece of paper? 2 hours later. Phew, Lisa Schwan rubbed his wrist and let out a long breath. This kind of brush had a high requirement for the strength of the wrist, and it was tiring to write for a long time. Fill in the blanks, multiple choice, calculation, application, perfect. Lisa Schwan looked at the test paper in his hand and praised narcissistically. He had been practicing calligraphy for the past few months, and now he had some success in calligraphy. After all, he was a martial artist and had experience in controlling his strength. Speaking of martial arts, this guy rarely practiced martial arts ever since he went to the Imperial College to teach. He probably forgot that he was a martial arts expert. Young master, you're done? Drink some water. Xiao Shi, who was grinding ink, quickly put down the ink stick in her hand and went to pour some water for Lisa Schwan. Now, the servants in the Li residence knew that their young master did not like to drink tea, no matter how good the tea was. Thus, Xiao Shi said water and not tea. Okay. Lisa Schwan nodded, then took the test paper and started to check it. After a while, Xiao Shi held a cup of water and slowly walked over. Young master, here's your water. Unexpectedly, Lisa Schwan suddenly slapped the table like a lunatic and exclaimed, No, there should be an additional question. I was wondering why it didn't taste good. Xiao Shi, help me grind more ink. Oh, right away. Xiao Shi was helpless. She could only pout and reply, then continue to grind. 15 minutes later, the test paper was finally completed. Lisa Schwan picked up his cup of water and happily drank a few mouthfuls. He smiled and said, Xiao Shi, tell Sanbao to send this test paper to the workshop and ask the printing department to print 46 copies. Then send it to the Imperial College and give it to Mr. Su. Oh yes, young master. Xiao Shi agreed weakly. She took the test papers and was about to go out to look for Sanbao when she suddenly thought of something. She asked curiously, Young master, didn't you only print 38 copies of the test papers last time? Why are you printing 8 more copies this time? In the beginning, there were 32 students in the Imperial College of Mathematics. Later, Li Tai, Cheng Chumo, Qin Huaiyu, and Yuchi Baolin came. Including Lisa Schwan and Su Hongji, there were 38 students in total. Lisa Schwan smiled mischievously and said, because there would be new students coming to the School of Mathematics tomorrow. Xiao Shi, go quickly. Remember to keep the test papers a secret. Kang Yingda had already informed him yesterday that Sun Zifan, Yu Dongkai, and the other rich second generations are going to be transferred to the School of Mathematics. As there were some procedures to complete, the official transfer to the School of Mathematics was delayed until tomorrow. Lisa Schwan really didn't want to teach these little bastards. They were all rich second generations and little rascals. They were the type of troublemakers who were difficult to manage. If they were transferred over, it would definitely affect the learning style of the School of Mathematics. Although the learning style of the School of Mathematics had already been changed by Cheng Chumo, it was still within his control. Lisa Schwan originally planned to wait for these little rascals to come to the School of Mathematics tomorrow to show them who was the boss. This was to prevent them from being dishonest and causing trouble in the future. Who knew that he would be grounded by Li Er when he came back? He didn't expect this, but this didn't mean that he couldn't teach them a lesson. Everyone knew the reason why Sun Zifan and the other rascals wanted to come to the School of Mathematics. It definitely wasn't because they admired Lisa Schwan's new mathematics. Since you guys are here because of the holidays, then I'll let you guys have a taste of the School of Mathematics demonic exam. Lisa Schwan laughed sinisterly in his heart. The question he set this time was on the more difficult side. He estimated that it would be difficult to find a student who scored more than 80 points in the class. Therefore, he kindly added an additional question to give the students some benefits and add some extra material. Yes, young master, don't worry. Xiao Shi definitely won't leak the questions. Xiao Shi agreed and ran out quickly. However, she left a sentence in the air. Young master, your smile is so sinister. Lisa Schwan. The next day, Newspapers are sold. Newspapers are sold. The freshly printed Tang Daily. Today's headlines. Lantion County man says books will be expensive for the next 3 years. Friends who want to read, quickly buy the newspapers. What? Books are expensive? Give me a copy. Let me see. Give me a copy. I want to read The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Give me 2 copies. Chitu Culture, good job. I support Chitu Culture to lower the prices of their books. The popularity of a newspaper that had been trending for 4 days did not decrease at all. Instead, it became even more popular among the people of Chang, and there were even many people who went around to buy the previous newspapers just to read the first few issues of The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Of course, the people who paid attention to the newspaper were not just ordinary readers. There were also many businessmen. In the past 2 days, with the popularity of the newspaper and the bombardment of advertisements, Chitu Culture's newly opened shop also became very popular. Other than the low prices of their books, the effect of the advertisements in the newspaper could not be ignored. Otherwise, it would not have become so popular so quickly. As a matter of fact, there were already many businessmen who were eager to show their faces in the newspaper. Shi City, a certain Huji Tavern back hall. The Huji Tavern was a place where the waitresses were all women from the West. They were known as Huji. They were an important factor behind the popularity of Huji wine in the Tang Dynasty cities. In ancient times, there were not many young women who were Huji. These Huji taverns opened up a new era for the Tang Dynasty Chong and food market. Master, do you want to look for Tang Daily and ask them to promote our tavern? A tall, blonde beauty with blue eyes was wearing a thin veil that exposed her small waist. Her breasts were also faintly discernible. At this moment, she was sitting on the lap of a slightly plump, bearded middle-aged man who was dressed in extremely luxurious clothes. Her arms were wrapped around the middle-aged man's neck as she spoke. Why would my snow cherry say that? The bearded man closed his eyes in satisfaction. His right hand kept sliding around the woman's waist. Master, didn't you read the newspaper these past 2 days? Chitu Culture is such a small, unknown shop. After being in the newspaper, everyone knows about it. Our Yunlai Tavern has been in business for so many years. If we were to be in the newspaper, wouldn't our business be even better? The woman twisted her slender waist and said coquettishly. The middle-aged man's hand suddenly paused. He laughed out loud and said, why didn't I think of that? Haha, Snow Cherry, I'm so lucky to have married you. I'll go to their workshop now and ask them to help us promote it. Chapter 223. This Chitu Culture is so kind. They actually lowered the price of books so low. This is all thanks to Lordly. Do you think books will be as cheap as scallions in the next 3 years? In the Jinyu Academy in the south of Chang and City, 2 plainly dressed scholars were squatting on a rock and reading the same newspaper without a care for their image. They sighed. In the early Tang Dynasty, academies were private places. A few scholars who were familiar with each other would discuss Tao, read, and study here. At this time, academies were often surrounded by Taoist temples and Buddhist temples, so naturally, the styles of these schools were combined. For example, the Buddhist temple, the Taoist temple, and the Confucian Academy were mixed together. Since then, these 3 brothers had kowtowed to each other. This was also the beginning of the integration of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. However, the real integration was in the Song Dynasty. Brother Tianhua, Brother Feichen, what are you guys talking about? At this time, a handsome young man walked out and looked at his 2 classmates on the rock and asked curiously, Brother Hong Tianhua and I are talking about today's newspaper. Come take a look too. The young man on the rock stood up and greeted with a smile. Oh, then I'll take a look too. A moment later, the Lantion County man says that books will be as cheap as scallions in the next 3 years. Chitu Culture will provide another 27 types of books today, 350 copies of each type, all sold at a low price. To think that the 3 of us went to Chitu Culture to buy books yesterday. Looks like Lordly is going to do what he said. Chitu culture has already started to increase the supply of such high-quality and cheap books. Maybe books will really be as cheap as scallions in the future. The handsome scholar slapped his thigh and exclaimed after reading the headlines. Brother Hong, he is right. I just hope that Chitu culture's supply of books will increase. Yes, this lordly first invented the curved plow to benefit the people. Now, he's releasing so many cheap books to help the poor. This is really the gospel of us scholars. I, Hua Hongyi, used to respect no one, but now I respect Lordly. It would be great if Chitu culture sells Lord Li's new mathematics teaching materials. Hua Hongyi echoed. What? Brother Hong, he wants to learn Lord Li's new arithmetic? Hua Hongyi nodded and said, Of course. I heard that this new type of arithmetic is self-contained. It's convenient and fast to calculate. I've admired it for a long time. Unfortunately, I don't have the qualifications to enter the Imperial College. This is one of the biggest regrets of my life. Sigh, Brother Hongyi, don't take it too hard. It's indeed not easy for us commoners to enter the Imperial College. Your Majesty, I impeach the man from Li County. Yesterday, he condoned the customers of his shop to fight and disturb the public order, causing chaos in the Eastern Market. According to the law, he should be severely punished. Taiji Palace, Morning Assembly. As expected, Wei Zheng, the big troll, immediately attacked Li Zixuan. He didn't know if this old guy slept in the study room last night, but he did have dark circles under his eyes. When Cheng Yaojin heard this, he was so angry that his hair stood on end. When this old demon got angry, he didn't care about the occasion. At this moment, Cheng Yaojin was about to walk out and scold Wei Zheng, but he was stopped by Qin Shubao. Jijia, don't be impatient. Let's see what your Majesty has to say. Qin Shubao said softly. Cheng Yaojin glared at Wei Zheng unwillingly and retreated angrily. In his opinion, Li Zixuan was so obedient. After helping the farmers, he started to help the poor scholars. He even helped the Cheng family earn so much money. What a good child. How could he be as bad as Wei Zheng said? Zhang Sun Wuji, who was sitting in the front row, heard Wei Zheng's accusation. His eyes flashed, but he quickly returned to normal. No one knew what he was thinking. Cough. Lier raised his spirits and coughed lightly. He pretended to be serious and said, Minister Wei, I already knew about what you said yesterday. I also issued a decree to reprimand Li Zixuan. He is grounded for 7 days, and his salary will be deducted for 3 months. Let's forget about this matter. Lier was laughing in his heart. Wei Xuanqing, do you think you're the only one who knows how to scold? I'm already prepared this time. I will let you have a taste of being speechless. Wei Zheng frowned deeply. He didn't expect Lier to issue a decree so quickly. He also didn't expect Li Zixuan to be so favored by the emperor. This punishment was really nothing to him. Your Majesty, isn't this punishment a little? Wei Zheng felt that Lier was playing favoritism and wasn't fair. Thus, he couldn't help but speak out. A little what? Lier raised his eyebrows and smiled maliciously. Minister Wei, do you think that this punishment is a little light? That's great. In order to show my concern for the officials of the Imperial Court, if there are any officials who commit such a small mistake in the future, they will be grounded for 7 days, and their salary will be deducted for 3 months as punishment. Wei Zheng was dumbfounded. His jaw almost fell off. How could it be played like this? If that was the case, wouldn't all the officials hate Wei Zheng to death? 3 months of salary forfeiture was nothing to Li Zixuan, but to many of the ministers who relied on their salaries to survive, it was fatal. For example, Wei Zheng was one of them. The other officials were also in an uproar. The entire Taiji Palace was buzzing with noise. Your Majesty, this old official definitely didn't mean that. This old official feels that Your Majesty's punishment of Li Xianan is just right. It can show Your Majesty's benevolence and also show the majesty of the Tang Dynasty's laws. It is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. There was no other way. At this moment, Wei Zheng had already realized that he had fallen into the pit dug by Lier. At this time, he had no choice but to admit defeat. Otherwise, when the time came, not only would his salary be gone, but the other ministers would also gang up on him. No matter how awesome Wei Zheng was, no matter how good he was at talking, he wouldn't dare to be enemies with all the officials at the same time. Oh, Lier smiled and nodded. Then he said, "Since Minister Wei has taken the initiative to say so, then this matter won't be mentioned again. Does Minister Wei have anything else to report?" This old official doesn't have anything else. Wei Zheng had originally planned to impeach Li Zishuan before asking for a reward for Li Zishuan. However, after his impeachment, Li Zishuan wasn't affected at all. On the contrary, he had almost been cheated. So why should he ask for a reward for Li Zishuan? He wasn't in such a good mood right now. However, just because he wasn't willing didn't mean that the others weren't willing. At this moment, Kong Yingda stepped forward and clasped his hands to Lier. "Your Majesty, Li Xianen has recently created pinyin, pushed the newspaper, and lowered the price of books. In addition, he created the blackboard, chalk, and new mathematics. All of these have made significant contributions to the education of our great Tang. This old official feels that all wrongdoings should be punished and meritorious deeds should be rewarded. If such great deeds aren't rewarded, it will be difficult to convince the masses." Right. "Your Majesty, Chancellor Kong is extremely right. This old official agrees. Cheng Yaojin's eyes lit up. He quickly jumped out and shouted. At the same time, he thought to himself, "Why is this old man Kong so cute today?" His words are exactly what I, Cheng Yaojin, am thinking. Chapter 224. Taiji Palace. Cheng Yaojin jumped out so casually, causing Kong Yingda to be dumbfounded. After a moment, he frowned and moved to the side, maintaining a distance between him and Cheng Yaojin. The reason why he requested for Li Zishuan to be praised was because he wanted to promote the younger generation. Unlike Cheng Yaojin, who did it based on his personal preferences, Li Zishuan's achievements in the Imperial College were obvious to all. The things that he did outside the Imperial College that were beneficial to the scholars were also known to the world. If he, as his superior, remained indifferent, then it would be too unreasonable. Lier did not reprimand Cheng Yaojin for his rudeness. He was already used to it. At this moment, he pondered for a moment and nodded. Beloved official Kong's words are not without reason. Education has always been the most important matter in every dynasty. Li Zishuan has indeed contributed a lot to the education of our great Tang. We wish to promote Li Zishuan to the position of Secretary of the Imperial College and confer him the title of rank for Imperial Physician. What do the officials think? Unlike the emperors of the Song and Ming dynasties, who would seek the opinions of the officials before making a decision, Lier was a very strong and opinionated monarch. He would always state his decision first before asking for the opinions of the officials. Of course, most of the time, this kind of inquiry was just a formality. As long as it wasn't too overboard, no one would object. This old official thinks it's fine. Kong Yingda was the first to express his approval. His original intention was to let Lier promote Li Zishuan to the position of Secretary of the Imperial College. After all, he was already old and the Imperial College needed a successor. Although Li Zishuan was a little lazy, his teaching ability was unquestionable. Kong Yingda hoped that Li Zishuan would be able to shoulder the burden in the end. As for Lier conferring him the title of Imperial Physician, this was out of Kong Yingda's expectations. The Minister of Education of the Imperial College was equivalent to the Vice President of the Imperial College. It was a position below the 4th rank of the Imperial College. The Grand Physician was a minor official above the 4th rank of the Imperial College. It wasn't that there weren't people with more nominal positions than actual positions, but they were relatively rare. This old official agrees. Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and the other civil officials cupped their hands in agreement. Zhang Sun Wuji had no choice but to follow the crowd. As for the formation of generals, with Qin Xiong, Cheng Yaojin, and Li Jing taking the lead, who would be so bored to raise objections? Just like that, Li Zishuan, who had just been reprimanded by the emperor yesterday, was immediately promoted by 3 ranks today, jumping from the dean of the Faculty of Science to the vice principal of the university. It was true that there were strange people every year, but there were especially many this year. The Imperial College. Today's School of Mathematics was a little different. 5 new students had come early in the morning. This was something new. Their School of Mathematics had always been at the bottom of the Imperial College. Other than Lisa Schwan, who had attracted Li Tai and Chang Chumo with his personal charm, no one would be willing to come here. Sun Zifen, Yudong Kai, Kong Chuansun, Song Tianyu, Jiang Wenchong, Bai Hongyuan, Guang Gaohan, Duan Wenbao. Why are the few of you here? Cheng Chumo, who was sitting in the classroom, couldn't help but open his eyes wide and exclaim when he saw Sun Zifen and the others carrying tables in. These people had all been with him before, and they were all people in the circle. Although their fathers weren't first-rank officials, they were still considered the mainstays of the imperial court. Of course, Cheng Chumo would recognize them. However, after these people entered the imperial college, Cheng Chumo couldn't be bothered to enter them, so they separated. Haha, Brother Chonyo, I heard that you entered the School of Mathematics, so I went to find Chancellor Kong and requested to be transferred to the School of Mathematics. Aren't I here to accompany you? Huh. Sun Zifen was lying through his teeth. He looked like he was deeply in love with her and laughed loudly. That's right. Brother Zifen is right. We are all here because of Brother Chonyo, Brother Huayu, Brother Baolin, and His Highness King Wei. As Sun Zifen's loyal follower, Yu Donkai followed suit and said shamelessly, Fisk, do you think I don't know you bastards? You must be coveting the long holidays in our School of Mathematics, so you transferred here. Litai had also noticed these little bastards long ago. When he heard Yu Donkai's words, he couldn't help but mock them. Cough, cough. Yu Donkai was embarrassed when his lie was exposed. How can His Highness King Wei say that? It hurts our feelings. Sun Zifen was quite thick-skinned. He didn't feel embarrassed at all when he heard that. Instead, he chuckled and said, the little fatty was young and looked quite comical, so no one bothered to argue with him. Compared to him, Li Tai was a big fatty. Li Tai rolled his eyes and smiled sinisterly. Haha, you bastards are only thinking about the long holidays in the School of Mathematics, but you don't know about other things, right? You will be crying when the time comes. Haha, Zifen, Donkai, Tianyu, you guys came just in time. Cheng Chumo also reacted. He immediately looked at Sun Zifen fervently, as if he was looking at a living Lei Feng. Although this guy didn't know who Lei Feng was, his fervent gaze still made Sun Zifen, Yu Donkai, and the others feel a chill down their spines. It was almost the monthly examination, and Cheng Chumo was worried about how to get out of the last 5 places. He had just dozed off when someone sent him a pillow. How could he not be happy? No matter how bad Cheng Chumo was at school, he should be better than Sun Zifen and the others, right? The way Sun Zifen and the others helped him, without hesitation, really touched Cheng Chumo. What's wrong? What's wrong? Is there something we don't know? Prince Wei, Brother Chonyo, tell us quickly. Sun Zifen wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he was very clever. He immediately noticed that something was wrong from the reactions of Li Tai and Cheng Chumo, so he asked hurriedly. Li Tai waved his hand mischievously and said, Don't call me Prince Wei. There are only classmates in the School of Mathematics. There's no prince. Cheng Chumo laughed and said, Don't worry, you two will know in a while. Sun Zifen and the others were speechless. They moved the table nervously and found a place to sit down, waiting for the judgment of fate. On the other side of the school building, Meng Wenhao, Kushir Qing, Zheng Ziren, Lu Yin, and the others were gathered together and didn't join the fun. Now, the School of Mathematics was faintly divided into 2 factions, the poor children and the noble children. Usually, these ordinary children who came from different places and went through many rounds of selection could often talk together. Although some noble children didn't discriminate against them. For example, when Meng Wenhao asked Cheng Chumo to borrow a newspaper to read, Cheng Chumo immediately lent it to him. Although this was the case, their living environment was different since they were young, so the topics they talked about were naturally different. If they were forced to talk together, there would always be a feeling that they couldn't talk together. Brother Ku, Are you going to get full marks in this weekly examination again? Zhang Ziren smiled kindly. They were talking about the holidays, but here they were talking about studying. This was the difference. Chapter 225. Brother Ziren, you must be joking. No one dares to say that they can get full marks on the questions set by Mr. Wang. Kushirqing smiled modestly. He then looked at Meng Wenhao and said, Brother Wenhao, you lost a point last time because of your carelessness. You've been studying so hard recently. You must be determined to get full marks this time, right? Meng Wenhao scratched his head and said awkwardly, Well, Brother Ku, you said it yourself. No one knows what questions Mr. Wang set. He was indeed upset about his mistake in the last exam for a long time. In the past 5 days, he had been studying harder than before. Every night, he had to work overtime until midnight. If it wasn't for the money for oil, he might have studied until midnight every night. Although he was thinking about getting full marks for this exam, he couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. He had to be humble when he had to be. Lu Yin interrupted, Sai, I just want to get 90 points. Why are the three of you arguing about who can get full marks? Ha! The three of them smiled kindly. Quiet, quiet. At this moment, Su Hongji walked in with the test papers in his arms. The students suddenly quieted down and looked at Su Hongji in confusion. They didn't see Li Zixuan come in. Su Hongji also saw the confusion in the students' eyes. He said with a serious face, Professor Li is busy recently and can't teach in the Institute of Mathematics. I'll be your substitute for the next few days. All the lessons will be done according to the previous schedule. As soon as Su Hongji finished speaking, there was an uproar. Although Li Zixuan hadn't been the director for long, all the students had a good impression and respect for this knowledgeable teacher. Now that Li Zixuan suddenly didn't come, they were a little confused. What happened to Mr. Wang? Why did he suddenly stop coming? I don't know. Yesterday, when it was close to noon, Sir suddenly left in a hurry. Did something happen at that time? What should we do? Who can help Mr. Wang? Meng Wenhao also frowned. He looked at Kushirqing and asked worriedly, Shirqing, do you know what happened to Mr. Wang? Kushirqing shook his head with a solemn expression. I don't know either. Have you read yesterday's and today's newspapers? Zhang Ziren suddenly asked. What's wrong? Ziren, what does this have to do with the newspaper? Kushirqing asked doubtfully. It has a lot to do with it. Brother Ku, you may not know, but the headlines of the newspapers these past 2 days have been related to the Strange Culture, a new shop in the East City. Furthermore, this shop is Mister's property. Yesterday, there was a large-scale brawl at the Strange Culture, which alarmed a large number of Wuho to suppress it. Only then was the riot quelled. Sai, Sir didn't come today. I'm afraid he was implicated by this matter. Zhang Ziren made a detailed analysis and then sighed with a worried expression. Meng Wenhao couldn't help but ask, Will Sir be okay? Kushirqing pondered for a moment and said, It shouldn't be a big deal. Sir didn't participate in the brawl. At most, he'll be punished for his poor supervision. In the front row, Li Tai's expression didn't change. He already knew that Li Zixuan was grounded yesterday, and he also guessed Li Zixuan's intentions. Therefore, he wasn't worried about Li Zixuan's situation at all. Cheng Chumo, Qin Huayu, and Yuqi Baolin still didn't know that Li Zixuan was grounded. At this time, they heard the discussions of the surrounding students and couldn't help but be extremely worried. Qin Huayu asked, Chonyo, don't you know what happened to Xiaoxian? How would I know? Let's wait until noon when I go home and ask my father. It should be fine. Otherwise, my father would definitely tell me in advance. Yes, I hope so. When I go back, I'll also ask my father. If there's anything we can help with, our Qin family will definitely do our best to help. Qin Huayu nodded and said. Qin Huayu had always remembered Li Zixuan's kindness in saving his father's life. However, he couldn't thank him with words. He had always been thinking of how to repay him with practical actions. Brother Huayu, Brother Chonyo, wait for me to go back. I'll also ask my father. He's in charge of Wuho Wei. He definitely knows what happened. Yuqi Baolin, who never knew what worry was, revealed a rare look of worry on her face. Bang, bang, bang. Quiet, quiet. Su Hongji looked at the chaotic situation of the students below, hurriedly patted the lectern, and shouted loudly. But in his eyes, there was a trace of gratification. This group of students really valued the relationship between teacher and student. After the students quieted down, Su Hongji continued, "You don't have to worry. Professor Li is fine. Nothing happened to him. We'll start the exam now. The exam time is 4 hours. Everyone, hurry up." After saying that, Su Hongji began to distribute the exam papers. However, when he looked at the students, there was a trace of sympathy. Yes, it was sympathy. He had obviously looked at the exam papers in advance. When the students heard that Li Zhaxuan was fine, their hearts calmed down. When they saw the exam papers being distributed, they didn't have time to care about anything else. Time was limited. If they didn't hurry up, they would be the last in the exam. Only Sun Zifen and the rest looked at the exam papers with a face of confusion. They didn't know what to do and looked around. Puzzled, they asked each other, "Exam? What exam? We haven't learned anything yet. How can we take the exam?" Silence. Silence. Don't whisper to each other. Otherwise, you'll be given 0 marks. Su Hongji slapped the table and imitated Li Zishuan's lines when he was invigilating the exam and shouted angrily. Sun Zifen, Yu Donkai, and the rest shrunk their necks. They didn't dare to be rash and began to look at the exam papers. But when they looked, they were completely dumbfounded. What were these tadpole-like words? Damn, what was this plus, dash, x divided by? They couldn't even understand the questions. How are they going to take the exam? F asterisk CK your exam. Sun Zifen couldn't help but look at his companions with a tragic face. He realized that they were all at a loss. He couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. When he first came in, he didn't choose his seat well. All around him were scammers who didn't know anything. He couldn't even copy. If this went on, wouldn't he be the last in the exam and get 0 marks? If his father, who was the top scholar, knew about this, wouldn't he kill him? After all, as the son of the top scholar, it would be embarrassing to get 0 marks. F asterisk CK. I don't believe that all the questions in this exam paper have these tadpole-like words. I'll definitely find a question that doesn't have tadpole-like words. Sun Zifen gritted his teeth and made up his mind. No matter what, he had to get a few questions right. He definitely couldn't be the last in the exam. Although he wasn't a student of the School of Mathematics, he knew a little about mathematics. As long as he could understand the questions, he believed that he could solve some of them. Chapter 226. Damn, the title should be Where Did That Copper Coin Go? Sorry, I can change the content if it's wrong, but I can't change the title if it's wrong. In the classroom, Sun Zifen, Yu Donkai, and the other 8 new students were not the only ones having headaches. The rest of the students were having headaches when they saw the first question. In a division equation, the sum of the dividend, divisor, quotient, and remainder is 75. It is known that the quotient is 8, the remainder is 2, the dividend is underscore underscore underscore, and the divisor is underscore underscore underscore. In the previous exams, the first question was usually very simple. But this time, the first question was a linear equation with 2 variables, which made many people dumbfounded. Many students were quickly calculating on the draft paper while cursing in their hearts. Although Li Zishuan had explained this linear equation with 1 variable to them, it would take a lot of effort to solve it. They could only pray that the following questions would not be so perverted. Who knew that some people who had solved the first question with great difficulty would be dumbfounded when they saw the second question? It was written, "There is a well that is 7 feet deep. A snail crawls up from the bottom of the well. During the day, it climbs 3 feet and falls 2 feet at night. Can the snail climb out of the well in underscore 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 days?" F asterisk CK. F asterisk CK. Teacher is not giving us a chance to live. What kind of question is this? Why have I never seen it before? Someone is going to die. It can't be that the following questions are all perverted questions like this, right? The students roared in their hearts, complaining that Li Zeshuan's questions were too perverted. Even Li Tai, Kushir Qing, Zhang Ziren, Ming Wenhao, Qin Huayu, Iron Egg, and the others who had the best grades were deeply frowning. Meng Wenhao's eyes were fixed on this question. If his eyes had energy, this test paper would probably be instantly penetrated by this majestic energy, right? Climbing 3 feet a day and falling 2 feet is equivalent to climbing 1 foot a day, a total of 7 feet. Could it be that I have to climb for 7 days? No, no, no. This question is definitely not that simple. Meng Wenhao's mind raced as various ideas flashed through his mind. His hands didn't stop either. He was constantly writing and drawing on the draft paper, looking for a way to solve the problem. The rest of the students were all under great pressure. Their foreheads were dripping with sweat. The atmosphere of the entire building suddenly became extremely heavy. Su Hongji sat on the podium and looked at the group of miserable children below. He also sighed helplessly. After he received the test questions yesterday, he tried to do them. In the end, if he tried his best to do every question, he wouldn't be able to finish them in 4 hours. Li Zixuan's test papers had a lot of questions. After all, the exam time was 4 hours. The number of questions he set was basically twice as many as the test papers in his previous life. In the previous exam, because the questions were simple, many people did not feel that time was tight. However, it was different this time. There was not a single question on the entire exam paper that could be answered at a glance. He believed that it would not be long before the students realized that they did not have enough time. Li Tai was also a little overwhelmed by the second novel question. However, how could he, Li Tai, be someone who would admit defeat? This question was not unsolvable. If he thought about it carefully, he would definitely be able to find the answer. The snail actually only moves 1 foot a day. Most people would definitely think that if it climbed 1 foot a day, it would naturally reach the mouth of the well in 7 days. However, the problem is definitely not that simple. If the snail had already reached the mouth of the well, it wouldn't have continued to fall. This should be the most confusing part of this question. Then the snail climbed 4 feet in the first 4 days. On the 5th day, it climbed 3 feet and directly climbed out of the well. Therefore, the snail actually climbed out of the well in 5 days. Perfect. I, Li Tai, am indeed the smartest, hee. A proud smile appeared on Li Tai's face. He quickly wrote down the answers. However, he inadvertently glanced at the hourglass on the podium and was immediately shocked. He had used almost 15 minutes to answer the 2 questions. How could this be? Li Tai glanced at the vast sea of questions behind him. The proud look on his face disappeared. He took a deep breath and continued to immerse himself in the battle. Dang, dang, dang. Just as all the students were still immersed in the sea of questions, the gong and drum of the first class of the Imperial College had already sounded. The students were all shocked. They did not expect time to pass so quickly. At this time, many people had not even finished the fill-in-the-blank questions. It was not difficult to imagine how crazy Li Zixuan's questions were this time. Oh no, it seems that some of the questions are too difficult. I have to give up. Iron Egg had also just finished the last fill-in-the-blank question. He estimated the time needed for the remaining questions and realized that it was not enough. He secretly made a decision. The smart students all had similar thoughts. Easy first and difficult later. Otherwise, they would definitely not be able to get a high score. Along the way, they were defeated many times. However, many students finally finished the last question and answer. Meng Wenhao, Li Tai, and Kushir Qing were among them. Li Tai wiped the sweat on his forehead and felt relieved. He began to answer the questions. A quarter of an hour later, he finally came up with an idea. He spent some time writing down the answers step by step on the test paper. Then, he was about to flip back to the questions that he hadn't answered before, but he saw that there was a big question at the back. F***CK. What kind of medicine did Li Zixuan take? This is too much. Li Tai's heart was about to be driven crazy. However, when he saw the words in the brackets behind the additional questions, his heart moved and he immediately stopped cursing. The total score will be increased by 20 points if the answer is correct. No points will be deducted if the answer is wrong. Li Tai turned back to the test paper and found that there were 4 or 5 questions that he had not answered before. The total score added up to about 10 points. Now that he had less than half an hour left, even if he used all of his time, he might not be able to answer all of the questions correctly. After all, those questions were the most difficult questions. It was better to concentrate on the last additional question. If he got it right, he would get 20 points. Li Tai immediately made a decision and began to look at the last additional question with all his heart. There were 3 people who went to the hotel for 30 copper coins a night. Each of them paid 10 copper coins and gave the 30 copper coins to the innkeeper. Later, the innkeeper said that the discount today was only 25 copper coins. He took out 5 copper coins and ordered the innkeeper to return it to them. The innkeeper secretly hid 2 copper coins and then gave the remaining 3 copper coins to the 3 people. Each person received 1 copper coin, which is equivalent to each person paying 9 copper coins. This 3 multiplied by 9 equals 27 copper coins. Plus the 2 copper coins hidden by the innkeeper, it equals 29 copper coins. Please explain the reason. L. This question is very reasonable, but according to this calculation, where did the 1 copper coin go? Li Tai was not the only one who discovered the advantage of the additional question. Sun Zifan also discovered that in the entire test paper, there were only a dozen questions that did not include Arabic numerals and operation symbols. One of them was this question, and the bonus points were very high. Sun Zifan took a fancy to this question at first glance. However, this question had already confused him. He did not know where the 1 copper coin went. Chapter 227. Calm down, calm down. Meng Wenhao also tackled the additional question. The previous questions he gave up added up to 10 points. If he could answer this additional question correctly, there was still hope for him to get a high score. Thinking of the last time he lost his footing and carelessly lost a point and missed the first place, Meng Wenhao clenched his teeth and encouraged himself in his heart. This time, he must take back the first place. Calm down, calm down, calm down. There must be a problem with the calculation in the question. Otherwise, there would not be a penny missing. I must calm down and find the loophole in the question. Meng Wenhao quickly read the question 7 or 8 times, then closed his eyes and concentrated all his attention on the question, word by word. At this moment, his brain was like a huge sieve, constantly filtering the most important information in the question. Time passed little by little. Meng Wenhao's eyebrows became tighter and tighter. At this time, the atmosphere in the classroom became more and more serious and quiet. It was so quiet that he could hear his own breathing. The serious and tense atmosphere made everyone feel the pressure multiplied. But for some people, pressure meant motivation, such as Meng Wenhao. After a quarter of an hour of deliberation, and thinking, Meng Wenhao finally opened his eyes. If one looked carefully, one could see a trace of joy and confidence in his eyes. Found it. I found a loophole in the question. These 20 points, Meng Wenhao, will take them. At this moment, Meng Wenhao was really like a god. The pen in his hand trembled rapidly and even shook out a series of afterimages. In a few breaths, Meng Wenhao wrote down the answer that he had been thinking about for a long time on the test paper. At this time, he had time to breathe a sigh of relief. Phew! With these 20 points in hand, I feel much more at ease. Let's look at the previous questions. Maybe I can find some inspiration. Although there was less than a quarter of an hour left, Meng Wenhao still wanted to try his luck and see if he could answer the questions that he gave up before. After all, no one would complain about having a high score. Dang, dang, dang. After a while, the sound of gongs and drums was heard. Stop writing. Stop writing. Quickly stop writing. Students in the last row, get up and collect the test papers. Su Hongji's spirit was lifted, and he immediately stood up and shouted, Hey, Sun Zifan, stop writing, or you'll get 0 marks. Sun Zifan had just arrived at the School of Mathematics and Mathematics. He did not know the rules and wanted to write for a while more, but he was warned by Su Hongji. Feeling helpless, he could only put down the pen in his hand and stand up to collect the papers. In the past, it was Chung Chumo who collected the papers in this row. Now that he was sitting at the back, according to the rules, it was his turn to collect the papers. A moment later, all the test papers were sent to Su Hongji. Su Hongji checked the test papers. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he coughed twice and said, "According to Professor Li's instructions, everyone will have a break in the afternoon. Today's questions are a little difficult. Everyone must have worked very hard. Go back and have a good rest." "Oh, I got another half day off." The students who had just been tortured to death immediately roared when they heard this. Among them, Sun Ziffin's roar was the loudest. This little bastard had just transferred here today, and he was almost tortured to death. He had been depressed for the whole morning. Previously, when he was in the School of Imperial Studies, although his results were not the best, they were still above average. After experiencing this exam in the morning, he felt that he was going to be the last. He could not stand it. No matter how naughty a child was, he still had a sense of shame. He did not want to be the last. Therefore, he had been depressed for the whole morning. Now that he heard that he was going to have a break, he was finally happy. This was the most important reason why he came to the School of Mathematics. He could finally enjoy the 2-day break every 5 days in the future. "Brother Ko, how did you do in the exam?" On the other side, Tseng Ziren looked at Kush Shurqing and asked while packing up. Kush Shurqing paused, frowned, and said, "I didn't feel too good. The questions this time are too flexible. Although I've studied the knowledge points, I still feel that every question is weird and full of traps. I really can't get used to these kind of questions. I can't even answer a few questions in the middle." Tseng Ziren sighed and said, "Sigh, yes, I think so too. Oh, by the way, Wenhao, how did you do?" Meng Wenhao forcibly suppressed the excitement in his heart. He turned his head and said calmly, "So-so." The questions this time were indeed a bit difficult. In fact, he did well in the exam this time, but to avoid being a topic of ridicule, he still said it modestly. In less than a quarter of an hour, he actually solved 3 of the 5 questions that he had previously given up in a good state after solving the additional question. It was really a miracle. Most of the time, especially during exams, although the final results depended on the hard work they put in during the exam, their state of mind during the exam was also very important. If their state of mind was good, it was very possible for them to surpass all the difficulties and perform exceptionally well. This was the conversation between the top students after the exam. Of course, the underachievers had their own topics. "Hey, Sun Ziffin, how was it? You must have helped old Cheng to be the bottom this time, right?" Ching Chumo said with a smirk and winked in front of Sun Ziffin. F***CK, you have studied mathematics for so long, and you still have the nerve to compare yourself with me, a student who just transferred over? Sun Ziffin cursed in his heart. His face was extremely gloomy, but he still said stubbornly, "Haha, that's not necessarily true. I solved the last additional question. Maybe my score will be higher than Brother Chon Yo's." "Oh," Chung Chumo was shocked. He quickly asked, "Hey, then tell me quickly, where did the missing 1 cent go?" Old Chung pondered for an hour and still couldn't figure it out. "I'm so worried." "Ha, I can't say. I can't say." Sun Ziffin laughed and walked away pretentiously with his hands behind his back. Actually, he was bitter. Although he found the loophole in the additional question and solved it, there were too many questions that he didn't know. He estimated that even with the additional questions 20 points, his score would still be lower than Chung Chumo's. Thinking of this, he didn't have the face to continue bragging. Chung Chumo's status as an underachiever was recognized in Chong and City. If his father, Sun Fujia, knew that his son couldn't even beat Chung Chumo, the consequences would be unimaginable. Just thinking about it made him feel terrible. Hey, Chung Chumo stretched out his hand and wanted to get to the bottom of it, but Sun Ziffin had already run away. In fact, he was thinking about the same thing as Sun Ziffin. If he could beat Sun Ziffin in this exam, then wouldn't he, Chung Chumo, be awesome? If he could beat the son of the top scholar, he would feel proud. Chapter 228. The commotion outside had nothing to do with Lisa Schwan. It was rare for him to have a Golden Week holiday. If he didn't sleep in, how could he be worthy of Li Er's painstaking efforts? Of course, if Li Er knew that his intentions would be misunderstood by Lisa Schwan like this, he would definitely vomit blood. He got up late in the morning. After eating breakfast and resting for a while, Li Zixuan returned to his small courtyard and began to practice his swordsmanship. Yes, practicing swordsmanship, not practicing swordplay. It had been a long time since he practiced his swordsmanship. When he suddenly picked up the wind-chasing sword, he actually felt a little awkward. Li Zixuan couldn't help but frown. He thought to himself, "It's all Li Er's fault for forcing me to do things. My martial arts aptitude is so high, yet he wants me to be a teacher. It's simply a waste of talent." Suppressing the discomfort in his heart, Li Zixuan forced himself to practice the 9 Tai Xian sword a few times. It should only be 5 swords now. When the awkwardness disappeared, he put away the wind-chasing sword and took a deep breath. "Young master, the way you practiced your swordsmanship just now was really nice." Xiaoxi excitedly ran over and wiped Li Zixuan's sweat with a wet towel as she said happily, Yes, it looked like a sword immortal." Xiaoxi was so excited that her face turned red. She also ran over and echoed. Although Li Zixuan's swordsmanship had slightly declined compared to last month, this small gap could not be seen unless one was an expert. The 2 little girls were easily captivated by Li Zixuan's graceful movements when he was practicing his swordsmanship. Of course, it was also because Li Zixuan was handsome to begin with. In any case, the worship and fanaticism in their eyes greatly satisfied Li Zixuan's vanity. She should be considered as this young master's little fangirl. Li Zixuan was proud in his heart, but he pretended to be calm on the surface. He took the towel from Xiaoxi's hand and casually wiped himself. He looked at Xiaohe and joked, "Xiaohe, do you know what a sword immortal looks like?" Xiaohe raised her chin proudly, shook her little head, and said, "Of course I know. The storyteller said it before. 3 parts of the sword Qi, chivalrous and gentle heart. A sword immortal banished to the world, valiant and formidable." Xiaohe feels that these are all describing young master. "Ha! The little girl's mouth is so sweet today. Did you put honey on it? Let me have a taste." Li Zixuan laughed to his heart's content. He looked like he was about to pounce. Xiaohe was so scared that she screamed and quickly ran away. Young master, why are you like this? Xiaohe doesn't want to talk to you anymore, humph." With that, she blushed and ran away. This little girl? Li Zixuan looked at the fleeing figure of Xiaohe and shook his head with a smile. He had nothing to do at home, so it was quite interesting to tease a little maid. "Hee, young master, you're scaring little he again." She covered her mouth and chuckled. After getting along with him for so long, she could tell what kind of temperament her young master had. Just now, it was obvious that he was deliberately teasing Xiaohe. He didn't mean to take advantage of her at all. "Hey," Li Zixuan passed the towel to Xiaohe and changed the topic. He asked, "Where's Lan? Did she go out to play again?" Young Miss went out early in the morning." Xiaoxi replied. Ever since Li Zixuan was conferred the title of nobility, the Li family's status had also risen. They were considered a large family in Yongle Lane. Li Jingma and his wife were not too worried about their daughter's safety. Adding on to the fact that Li Zixuan pampered her too much, Lan had the chance to run out and play with her other friends. This little girl had the support of the strange interest pavilion and could always get a lot of new toys. Those brats in Yongle Lane were also happy to play with her. Now, this little girl had already become the big sister of the Yongle Lane. There were quite a lot of underlings who hung around with her. This little girl is really carefree. But those little fellows over there must be having a hard time, right? Li Zixuan looked towards the direction of the Imperial College in the northwest and laughed. He guessed that many students would curse him when they saw the perverted questions he gave. "Young master, who is having a hard time?" Xiaoxi asked curiously. Li Zixuan waved his hand and was about to explain when he saw Sanbao running towards them. She shouted as she ran, young master, the imperial edict is here. Old master wants you to quickly go to the front yard to receive the edict." When Li Zixuan heard this, his head was full of question marks. Didn't he just receive an imperial edict yesterday? Why did it come again today? Could it be that Li Er felt that the punishment was not severe enough and wanted to mess with him again? Although he was full of questions, it was useless to ask the 2 people in front of him. Li Zixuan quickly went to change his clothes. He always wore casual clothes when he practiced martial arts. If he went to receive the edict dressed like this, he might be picked on by others. The official robes of the Tang Dynasty emphasized on yin, yang, and the 5 elements. Green, red, white, black, and yellow were the 5 cardinal colors. They were green in the east, red in the south, white in the west, black in the north, and yellow in the center. Yellow represented the center and also represented the foundation. The emperor's robes were yellow. The other officials' robes were also differentiated by colors and patterns. Purple robes of the 3rd rank and above were worn with a gold fish pouch. Purple robes of the 5th rank and above were worn with a silver fish pouch. Green robes of the 6th rank and below were worn with no silver fish pouch. Half an hour later, Li Zishuan wore a 5th rank robe and a silver fish pouch. Just like this, he came to the front yard. When the eunuch saw that the main character had arrived, he did not waste any time and said, "Lord Li, receive the imperial edict." He then opened the imperial edict and began to read it out loud. Different from the imperial edict before, the imperial edict today was much simpler. Li Zishuan listened for a while and understood. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief. Li Er was giving him a promotion. Are you kidding me? I was just criticized yesterday, and I'm being promoted today? How can you do this? But this Li Er was still a little stingy. For the sake of the great Tang's education, Wang Chong had poured his heart and soul into it, working day and night, but he had only given him the post of imperial directorate, not a marquis. How stingy! Li Zishuan was a little dissatisfied with his current title. How can a baron sound as domineering as a marquis? It seems like I have to find a way to become a marquis. Li Zishuan's mind was spinning. When a eunuch finished reading the imperial edict, he pretended to be grateful and went to accept the edict. The old eunuch laughed and said, "County Li, you're really capable. You're already a minister in the Imperial College at such a young age. You're really young and accomplished. It's rare to see someone like you in this world." Li Zishuan was a little disdainful. What's so good about being a minister in the Imperial College? The name doesn't sound good. Minister in the Imperial College, 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 Minister in the Imperial College. How depressing. I don't want to be a minister in the Imperial College. But he only dared to say this in his mind. If he really said it out loud, Li Er would kill him and his father would be furious. Didn't you see that Father Li was smiling like a chrysanthemum after hearing the imperial edict? Li Zishuan pretended to be modest and said, "You flatter me, Lord Chamberlain. Please come in and have some tea." At this time, Li Jingma took a plate of gold leaves and quietly put it in the hands of the Chamberlain. He smiled and said, "My son is right. Lord Chamberlain, please come in and have some tea with me." The old eunuch skillfully put away the gold and shook his head. "No, no. I have to go back to the palace to report." With that, he took his leave. Chapter 229. How is it, Father? Didn't I tell you yesterday that His Majesty wasn't really going to punish me? Look, didn't he just give me a slap, and now he's giving me a sweet date? Inside the room, Li Zishuan leaned against the door frame and showed off to his father, who was happily hugging the imperial edict. When this guy started to boast, he really didn't have any self-awareness at all. In fact, when Li Er's imperial edict came yesterday, he was a little flustered in his heart. The words he said to his father were completely guesswork, used to comfort the two elders. In the end, by a stroke of luck, Li Er sent someone to deliver the imperial edict for his promotion today. Xianer, you're right. My son, you're now a minister of the directorate. Father is very gratified. Li Jima didn't care if his son was bragging or not. In any case, his son had been promoted and the result was good. That was enough. Isn't it because I was born well? Madame Li snatched the imperial edict from her husband's hands and said proudly, "Cough, cough. Yes, madam is right." Li Jingma was helpless and could only follow his wife's words. Li Zishuan wiped the cold sweat from his heart and thought to himself, Father really doesn't have any status in the family. I hope that after my precious Yushi marries over, she won't learn bad from me. Xianer, you're now a minister of the directorate. In the future, you have to be more steady when doing things. Look at Chancellor Kong. That's the style of a great scholar. You have to learn more from Chancellor Kong. Li Jingma came to his senses and began to exhort his son again. Li Zixuan curled his lips. If he was like old man Kong, he would be sullen to death every day. It was proper to be free and unrestrained. Moreover, he wasn't interested in the minister of the directorate. Father, isn't it just a minister of the directorate? It's not like it's a high official. Is there a need for you to be like this? Nonsense. Father Li, who was still amiable just now, was instantly enraged when he heard this bastard's words. He said sternly, "The position of Secretary of the Treasury is of great importance. This is the Deputy Chief of the Treasury, assisting the Chancellor in overseeing the affairs of the Treasury. Xian'er, you mustn't treat him so sloppily. As far as I know, in the history of the Imperial College, there has never been a Minister of Education as young as you. His Majesty thinks so highly of you. Don't let him down." Li Zixuan listened to his father's popular science and realized that the position of Minister of Industry was actually so awesome. Wasn't it equivalent to the position of Vice President of a university? And it was the best university in the country. Being able to become a vice principal at such a young age was indeed impressive. Thinking about it this way, Li Zixuan was more satisfied with this position. He rubbed his nose awkwardly and hurriedly said, "Father is right. I will work hard and not disappoint your Majesty's expectations." "Iron Egg, you're back?" At noon, Li Zixuan saw Iron Egg, who had just come back from school, in the front yard and said with a smile, "Yes, master. This is the test paper that Mr. Su asked me to bring to you. He said that you can give it to him after you mark it." As Iron Egg spoke, he took out a stack of sealed test papers from his backpack. Yes, it was a backpack that Li Zixuan had asked someone to sew for him. Iron Egg and Lan both had backpacks. When Lan had cried and begged to go to school with them, Li Zixuan had asked someone to sew a backpack for her. After all, the ancient examination boxes used by scholars were too cumbersome. Why did Mr. Su mark it himself? Looking at the test papers in front of him, Li Zixuan was speechless. He didn't expect that he would still have work when he was on vacation. This was unreasonable. Iron Egg scratched his head awkwardly. He knew that his master was lazy, but he didn't expect him to be this lazy. He thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Su said that he didn't know the standard answers for some of the questions, so he could only let you mark them yourself." F***CK. Li Zixuan really wanted to chop off his hands. He asked you to set such a difficult test paper. Did you dig your own grave? Well, you can take the test papers to the west courtyard. Come to the front courtyard to eat later. Li Zixuan waved his hand helplessly and said gloomily, "Yes, master. However, come here quickly." Yi Lane, Meng Wenhao's house. Meng Wenhao's mother waved to her son and said with a smile, "Mother, what's the matter?" Meng Wenhao ran over and asked curiously. Meng Wenhao's mother carefully took out a brand new book and handed it to her son. She happily said, Look, this is what I was waiting for this morning. I think it's called Chi-Tzu Culture. It took me a lot of effort to get this. When it was my turn, there was only this book left. I saw that this book was so cheap, so I bought it. However, your father and I don't have the ability to buy new books for you. In the past, you either borrowed books from others or bought old books from others. This is the first new book I bought for you. Take it quickly." Meng Wenhao looked at the brand new Analects of Confucius in front of him and saw his mother's right hand full of calluses. His nose twitched, and he almost cried. He took the Analects of Confucius with both hands, sniffed, and said with a forced smile, "Thank you, mother. However, why are you still so polite to me? Actually, I have to thank the owner of Chi-Tzu Culture for setting the price so low. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. This person is really a living Buddha for us poor people." Meng Wenhao's mother said with a sigh, "Mother, actually, the owner of Chi-Tzu Culture is our master. It's actually Li Xianji." Yes, I heard that there were many people fighting in front of Chi-Tzu Culture for the book yesterday. It seems that our master was implicated. He didn't come to the school today. Meng Wenhao frowned and said worriedly, Then will Mr. Li be fine? He's the benefactor of many of us. Nothing can happen to him. Meng Wenhao's mother opened her mouth in shock. Meng Wenhao comforted her. Mother, don't worry. Teaching assistant Sue told us that Mr. Li is fine. There should be news in a few days. Meng Wenhao's mother looked at her son, thought for a moment, and said, why don't you go to Mr. Li's house to visit? As a student, you should pay him a visit. There are about 10 eggs at home. You can bring them to Mr. Li. Mother, Mr. Li's house doesn't lack these. You can leave these eggs for Yaya to nourish her body. Meng Wenhao looked at his skinny little sister who was playing with grasshoppers outside and said with heartache, What do you know? You're a student. How can you visit Mr. Li's house empty-handed? Listen to me. Didn't you say that you have the afternoon off? Then you can go in the afternoon. You can't be ungrateful. Otherwise, I won't recognize you as my son. Meng Wenhao's mother patted her son's hand and said earnestly. Meng Wenhao had no choice but to agree. After a moment, he suddenly remembered the newspaper he read today, so he said, Mother, don't go to Chitu Culture to buy books in the future. There are too many people there. I'm afraid you'll be crowded. Meng Wenhao's mother interrupted. Hey, it's okay. I'm not that delicate. Meng Wenhao explained, No, Mother. Mr. Li said that in less than 3 years, the price of books will be as cheap as Chitu Culture books now. You don't have to fight for them at all. Also, I don't lack books to read now. The teaching materials we use are all printed by Mr. Li himself. Meng Wenhao's mother exclaimed, There's such a thing? Then you should go visit your Mr. Li in the afternoon. Why don't I catch the chicken in the backyard and give it to Mr. Li as well? Meng Wenhao quickly waved his hand and said, No, Mother. It's enough to bring some eggs. Go to your work. Chapter 230. In the afternoon, Li Zixuan was lying on the recliner and reading the latest issue of the newspaper. Other than the slightly hot weather, everything else was perfect. Hey, Ma Zhou actually wrote about me in the newspaper. TSK. This is the first time I'm in the newspaper. It feels pretty good. Li Zixuan's eyes lit up when he saw the headline. He was overjoyed. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary student. How could he have the chance to be in the newspaper? Not even the school newspaper. He didn't expect that he would be in the news after just giving a speech. He felt a sense of accomplishment. After being narcissistic for a while, Li Zixuan started to read other news out of boredom. There was no other way. In this era, there were no computers or televisions. He didn't like the novels sold in the East Market. For an otaku like him, in his spare time, he could only tease the servant girls and read the news in the newspapers. At this time, if he was given a computer and allowed to play single-player games, he would never get tired of it. What? You said he could go to the brothel? Sorry, with Han Yushi, a beautiful wife who was as beautiful as a fairy, Li Zixuan was not interested in those vulgar women. Moreover, although he was a loser in his previous life, he still had a trace of mental cleanliness. You could say that he was pretentious, but this was the truth. Moreover, the brothel was often a place where all kinds of conflicts occurred. Didn't you see that in all kinds of transmigration novels, when a main character went to the brothel, he would encounter all kinds of pretentious and face-slapping situations? The main character was in the mood for poetry and had all kinds of famous poems at his fingertips to win the heart of the top beauty. Then it was a night of love. There was also a second generation in the brothel who bullied a beauty. The main character was furious and punched the second generation. The hero saved the beauty, and so on. There were countless similar situations. Whether it was in the modern or ancient times, the brothel was a place where all kinds of disputes occurred. Although Li Zixuan was not afraid of trouble, he didn't like to attract trouble for no reason. Therefore, unlike the other second generation in Chang, and Li Zixuan didn't know where the brothel's door was even though he had transmigrated for so long. It wasn't that he wasn't lustful, but he didn't like to attract unnecessary trouble. Moreover, what was the point of that kind of emotionless XX00? Young master, Butler Fu, is here. He's in the front hall. Xiaohe walked over and said softly. Li Zixuan came back to his senses and asked curiously, Why is Faubert here? He should be here to deliver the car, right? Xiaohe saw a lot of horse carriages in the front yard. It looks like there's, Xiaohe said excitedly. Then, she suddenly couldn't find the right adjective and was stuck for a while. Yes, it's imposing, right? Lisa Schwan chuckled. So many luxurious limousines were put together. It was no wonder that Xiao He was so excited. However, if Faubert was just here to deliver the car, he could have just asked his subordinates to deliver it. Why did he have to come here in person? Yes, it's very imposing. Young master is really knowledgeable. Xiao He hurriedly nodded. Lisa Schwan was speechless. Was this little girl about to become his fangirl? Come on, let's go to the front yard. When they came to the front yard, they saw 2 rows of luxurious limousines. There were about 20 of them, lined up neatly. More than 20 fine horses stood in front of the cars, looking hale and hearty. With such extravagance and imposing manner, if there was also an orchestra, it would be simply amazing. Such a big commotion naturally alarmed Old Man Li and Mrs. Li. When Lisa Schwan came to the front hall, his parents were talking to Faubert. Xian, why did you get so many horse carriages? Seeing his son come in, Old Man Li couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Lisa Schwan didn't ask his family for the money to build these limousines. The profits of the winery and the strange interest pavilion in the past few months were all in his hands. It was completely enough to build dozens of such luxurious limousines. Therefore, Old Man Li had no idea about the construction of so many horse carriages in the yard. This was the benefit of Lisa Schwan's proposal to start a business on his own. With financial autonomy, he could do whatever he wanted. Although his family was rich, every time he asked his parents for money, not only would it be troublesome, but he would also feel embarrassed. Dad, these are the horse carriages I prepared for my wedding. Look, so many horse carriages. How grand it is to put them together. When the time comes, we can use these horse carriages to form a caravan to pick up the bride from the Han Manor. Not only will it be dignified, but it will also show the importance our family places on this marriage. Lisa Schwan turned on his bragging mode again as he lied to Old Man Li. Li Jingma seriously thought about the scene described by his son and found that it was indeed quite grand. More importantly, Old Man Li thought that since his son had been conferred a title at such a young age and held such an important position, it was necessary to have the extravagance of a wedding. These horse carriages were indeed necessary. Thinking of this, Old Man Li couldn't help but nod. Xian, you've thought it through quite thoroughly. Xian, Mother says that it should be like this. That girl from the Han family is truly beautiful and is also the adopted daughter of Duke Yi. If she marries over, we can't treat her unfairly. Madame Li also smiled and agreed. Seeing that his parents were so easily convinced, Lisa Schwan proudly laughed. Oh, that's right. Xian, how much did these horse carriages cost? Do you still have enough money? Li Jingmo raised his eyebrows and suddenly asked. Not expensive. The cost of one horse carriage is less than 500 strings of coins. In total, it's only 10,000 strings of coins. Your son has enough money. Lisa Schwan chuckled. Li Jingmo, Madame Li, and Faubert heard this, and their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Rich and imposing. This was truly rich and imposing. Although Li Jingmo was a tycoon in the capital, he wouldn't casually throw out 10,000 strings of coins for such a senseless matter. Furthermore, the reason why he had so much money was because he had worked hard for half his life to earn it. Lisa Schwan had only opened his shop for a short period of time, but he was already so rich. How was he going to let others live? What kind of horse carriage is this? It's actually so expensive? Li Jingmo frowned and asked. Although he didn't go in to take a look, in Father Li's eyes, all horse carriages were the same. Even if the horse carriage in the courtyard was a bit bigger, the cost was at most a few dozen strings of coins more expensive than other horse carriages. How could it be so expensive? It's just like the horse carriage I usually use. Father, have you never sat in one before? Oh, it seems like you really haven't sat in one before. Then, Father, you can pick one from this batch of horse carriages and try it out later. Your son guarantees that once you sit in it, you won't be willing to come down. Lisa Schwan patted his head and said bewitchingly. Ever since his horse carriage was made, it had become his and Iron Egg's special carriage to go to school. His parents really didn't have the chance to sit in it. Go away. What kind of horse carriage have your father not sat in before? Why would I care about your horse carriage? From what I see, other than the fact that your horse carriage looks a bit bigger from the outside, it's no different from an ordinary horse carriage. Father Li said in disbelief, but a trace of warmth flashed in his eyes. Now that his son knew how to show filial piety to him, of course he would feel happy. It's not that simple. Father, listen to me and pick one. With this horse carriage, when you have nothing to do, you can go sightseeing and have a honeymoon with my mother, Lisa Schwan said shamelessly. Ahem. Mrs. Li's face was slightly red as she glared at her son. Father Li's old face was also red. Although he didn't know what a honeymoon was, he could roughly guess what it was. Xian, you can talk to Steward Fu. He's looking for you. I'll talk to you first. Chapter 231. This title, don't think too much about it. Young master, other than delivering the car, this old man came here today to discuss something with you. In the front hall. After old man Li and Mrs. Li left, Faubert said with a serious expression. Faubert, if you have something to say, just say it. You don't have to be restrained here. Just say whatever you want. Lisa Schwan said warmly. Faubert said with a smile, Young master, a group of businessmen came to the workshop today. They want to advertise their shops in the newspaper, which is what you said before. They are also willing to pay for it. One of the barbarian businessmen even offered 500 strings of cash to buy a spot in the newspaper to advertise his restaurant. Majo couldn't make up his mind, so he asked this old man to come over and ask. The concept of advertising was something he heard from Majo. Now, he could be considered to have learned it and used it flexibly. Lisa Schwan was delighted. The real profitable business of the newspaper was finally here. It seemed that some people had a keen sense of smell. Lisa Schwan had asked Majo to estimate the cost of a newspaper. Even with the paper machine and movable type printing technology, the cost of a newspaper was still a little more than 3 copper coins on average. Calculating it this way, the newspaper itself wasn't profitable. Lisa Schwan was keen on the newspaper not only to satisfy his own interests, but also because of the huge potential value behind the newspaper. For example, advertising revenue and the control of public opinion. Controlling public opinion didn't mean that Lisa Schwan wanted to rebel and cause trouble. It was just to give himself an extra layer of protection. If others didn't come looking for trouble, he wouldn't take the initiative to cause trouble. Uncle Fu, you can agree to this, but you can only advertise in the middle column of every issue of the newspaper. There should be 8 spots on both sides. How about this? In the future, our newspaper will hold an advertisement auction every 7 days. We'll let the merchants come and bid for it. The highest bidder will get it. Lisa Schwan pondered for a moment and said, Young master's method is not bad. Then this old man will go back first. Faubert was already used to Lisa Schwan's ability to make money. He was only a little surprised in his heart when he heard this. He quickly recovered and nodded with a smile. Then take care, Faubert. On the other side, after old man Li left the front hall, he really went to the yard to pick an RV. In fact, there wasn't much to pick. They were all the same high-end RV. After old man Li found that they were all the same, he randomly picked one. Master, you're really picky? Mrs. Li said in annoyance. Our son is paying to build a carriage for us. How can we not accept it? Madam, quickly get into the carriage with your husband and see if this place is as good as Xian says. Li Jingma pulled his wife and said eagerly. Under Lisa Schwan's influence, he was now more thick-skinned than before. He had already thought through some things. His martial arts were no match for his son's, and his knowledge was no match for his son's. As for his ability to make money, he was no match for him now. He might as well enjoy his life in peace. Anyway, his son was successful, and the family could rely on their previous savings to not have to worry about food and clothing. Why should he live such a tiring life? Therefore, he didn't go to the shop much now. The shopkeepers were enough. His son was now an official, and they wouldn't dare to fool him. Go away. You don't care about your face, but I do. You have the nerve to ask for the carriage that your son prepared for his wedding. You're really shameless. Mrs. Li had always loved her son dearly, and she wasn't as thick-skinned as Li Jingma. Hey, I didn't ask him for it. Xian, but wanted to give it to me himself. Madam, quickly come with me to see it. Without any explanation, Li Jingma dragged his wife along, wanting to experience this RV. Hey, let go. Mrs. Li was so angry that she wanted to break free, but she couldn't resist the strength of Li Jingma's grip. After a while, the couple entered the carriage. Hiss! This carriage doesn't look like much from the outside, but after entering, I realized that it's really spacious. It's like a small room. Li Jingma exclaimed the moment he entered. Old master, why is the shape of this stool so strange? It's so comfortable to sit on. What is it made of? After Mrs. Li entered and saw the various strange decorations in the carriage, she forgot what she said outside. She took a fancy to the sofa at first glance and couldn't help but try to sit on it. After that, she didn't want to get up. When Li Jingma heard that, he curiously sat on the sofa opposite his wife. His entire body sank into the sofa. This is really comfortable. Xian'er, this child, knows how to enjoy life so well. How could this not be comfortable? Li Zishuan's sofa was not only made of soft material, but also had ergonomic features. It allowed the human body's arms, back, waist, and legs to relax well. Compared to the people of the Tang Dynasty who had to kneel on a couch or sit on a stool without a backrest, being able to sit on this sofa was, of course, an extremely luxurious experience. Mrs. Li didn't even bother to roll her eyes because she was currently enjoying this rare comfort with her eyes closed. However, she still said unhappily, "So what if Xian'er knows how to enjoy life? Can't you see our son enjoying life? In my opinion, our son is pretty good like this." Yes, this is pretty good. Of course, Li Jingma didn't have the guts to talk back to the tigress at home. He said contentedly, "Hey, madam, look at this soft stool. Even if the carriage moves, it won't be too bumpy. This carriage is really good. What Xian'er said just now is right. In the future, we can really sit in this carriage and go out to see the scenery. Your husband has been running around doing business for the past few years, and it's been hard for you to take care of the family alone. Now that Xian'er has been knighted, we don't need to worry about Lan'er anymore. Why don't we find some time to take you out for a walk to make up for your hard work all these years?" Mrs. Li was touched by her husband's sincerity. She opened her eyes, the rims of her eyes slightly red. However, she refused. Your wife is content with old master's intentions. Now that we're all grown up, it's inconvenient for us to go out and play. It's easy for others to gossip about us. Besides, Xian'er left us for 8 years. Your wife can't bear to part with him. Li Jingma patted his wife's hand and said warmly, "Don't worry, madam. We can just walk around Chang and then go out in the morning. We'll be back in the evening. There's no need for us to worry about what others say. I'm sure Xian'er also hopes that you can go out more often and relax." Mrs. Li thought for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll listen to old master." Look, madam, there are 2 small rooms inside. Let's go take a look." Chapter 232. Ahem, Sambao. Take this carriage to the east courtyard. Where's Sambao? The servants outside had heard the commotion in the carriage and guessed that their master and madam were showing off their love in the carriage. How would they, as servants, dare to eavesdrop on such a private matter? Not long after Old Manly got on the carriage, the servants, coachmen, and servants around the carriage all retreated far away. Thus, when Li Jingma got off the carriage with his wife, he habitually called out to Sambao. However, he realized that there was no one around. Coming. Master, are you calling for me?" Sambao, who was hiding in a corner in the west of the courtyard, saw that Li Jingma seemed to be looking for her after coming out, so she quickly ran over and bowed with a smile. Madam Li looked up at the servants far away and immediately understood. She angrily pinched her husband. Although the customs of the Tang Dynasty were more liberal, it was not to this extent. Li Jingma grimaced and resisted the urge to cry out in pain. He quickly said to Sambao, Yes. You take this carriage to the east courtyard." "Yes, master." Meng Wenhao carried a small basket of eggs and entered Yongla Lane. He looked all the way to the Li residence and saw the tall gate and the picturesque pavilions in the courtyard from afar. He couldn't help but stop in his tracks. He looked at the eggs in his hand and hesitated for a moment. Why are you standing there like a fool? Why don't you go in? At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind. Meng Wenhao, who was in a dilemma, was shocked. He turned his head and saw that the person who came was Li Tai. He quickly cupped his hands and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness Prince Wei. In the Imperial College, they were classmates and didn't need to be so polite. However, outside of the Imperial College, he had to pay attention to the etiquette between a monarch and a subject. Li Tai waved his hand. He looked at Meng Wenhao's outfit and asked, "Are you here to look for Mr. Li?" Yes. Then why don't you go in? Won't the gatekeeper let you in? That's not right. Their gatekeeper shouldn't make things difficult for people. Meng Wenhao scratched his head in embarrassment. Li Tai looked at the egg in Meng Wenhao's hand and saw his embarrassed look. He instantly understood and laughed. Wenhao, don't worry about it. Mr. Li's family is richer than mine. If you are worried about the importance of a gift, I'm afraid that there are not many people in Chang and who can give Mr. Li a gift. It's the thought that counts. As long as you're here to see him, I'm sure he's already very satisfied. Li Tai's words also contained some intention of explaining things, but to be able to be explained by Li Tai was in itself a kind of honor. For a smart person like Meng Wenhao, who had no conflict of interest with him, Li Tai approved of him in his heart and was willing to make friends with him. Perhaps this was the appreciation between smart people. When Meng Wenhao heard this, he felt slightly relieved. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Thank you for your explanation, Your Highness. Then let's go in together. It just so happens that I have some matters to discuss with Mr." With Li Tai leading the way, the process of Meng Wenhao entering the Li mansion was much smoother. The two of them directly entered the courtyard without any obstruction. Li Tai did not let anyone inform him. After he asked the servant Li Zixuan where he was, he directly led Meng Wenhao to the west courtyard. He did not treat himself as an outsider at all. Sigh. Meng Wenhao was just about to ask if this was too rude, but he saw that the surrounding servant girls and retainers didn't seem surprised at all. He could only shut his mouth and obediently follow Li Tai to the west courtyard. Along the way, there were pavilions, artificial mountains, lotus ponds, and trees. Meng Wenhao was dazzled. He thought to himself, Prince Wei was right. Mister's family is really rich. When I earn money in the future, I will also buy a big house like this for my parents to enjoy. Wow, there are so many carriages. They are actually the same as the ones Mister usually uses. When Li Tai entered the west courtyard, the first thing he saw was the 20 or so luxurious caravans. He immediately threw the purpose of his visit to the back of his mind and eagerly jumped into a carriage to enjoy the view. After Old Man Li pulled his carriage away, Li Zixuan also asked people to move the rest of the carriages to the west courtyard. After all, it was not appropriate for them to be piled up in the front courtyard. Anyway, his west courtyard was large, so there was nothing to be afraid of if there were 20 more carriages. At this moment, Li Zixuan was sitting in a pavilion not far away to enjoy the cool air. When he saw this little fatty like a bandit entering a village, he could not help but be speechless. He quickly got up and walked over, not because of Li Tai, but because he saw Meng Wenhao. Mr. Meng Wenhao was also shocked by the number of luxurious caravans. However, when he saw Li Zixuan walking over, he quickly regained his senses and cupped his hands in greeting. Wenhao, why are you here? Li Zixuan nodded and smiled gently. He was not surprised that Li Tai was here, but he was curious about Meng Wenhao's visit. Mister did not go to the Imperial College today, and I heard about the conflict between the students in front of the Strange Culture Center yesterday. I was a little worried about Mister's situation. However, my information is limited, so I can only come here to see for myself. I hope Mister can forgive me for disturbing you. Meng Wenhao bowed and cupped his hands in greeting. Li Zixuan's heart warmed. It seemed that he was quite successful as a teacher. At this moment, he finally understood the feelings of those teachers in his previous life when they saw their students come to visit them. It was a kind of gratification and joy from the bottom of their hearts. It was indescribable and irreplaceable. Wenhao, don't worry. I am fine. Haha. I was wondering why you came here. So it was because of this. Your worry was a little unnecessary. Not only is Mr. Fine, he is now the Imperial College's secretary. Li Tai jumped down from the carriage, patted Meng Wenhao's shoulder, and laughed. Li Zishuan could clearly feel the ground tremble. It was not an exaggeration at all. He was speechless at this little fatty. He was only 11 or 12 years old, but he was already so fat. Wasn't he afraid that he would have high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high blood fat in the future? Li Zishuan remembered reading in a book in his previous life that Li Tai's waist and belly were big. However, when Li Er saw his son's chubby appearance, he was not worried that it would affect his figure if he was too fat. Instead, he felt that his son would be very tired when he went to the imperial court. His heart ached for his son, so he allowed him to go to the imperial court in a small sedan chair. This was unheard of. Li Zishuan shook his head. He could not understand this strange father and son. It is good that Mr. is fine. I did not have anything else at home, so I could only bring some eggs. I hope Mr. does not mind. Meng Wenhao handed over the eggs in his hand and looked at Li Zishuan expectantly. Li Zishuan frowned. If it was in the past, it would have been fine. However, eggs were so expensive now, and Meng Wenhao's family was not well off. How could he accept these eggs? However, when he saw Meng Wenhao's expectant face, he was afraid that if he rejected, it would hurt this child's self-esteem. Li Zishuan was speechless for a moment. There was no one else who could be so conflicted about accepting gifts. So forget it. At most, when this child goes back, he would ask the kitchen to pack some dried fruits and pastries for him as compensation. The gift is light, but the thought is heavy. How could I mind? However, the next time you come, you must not bring these things. I do not lack anything at home. You and Qin Ke, follow me to the pavilion. Li Zishuan signaled Xiao Shi to accept the eggs and said to Meng Wenhao and Li Tai, "Thank you, Mr." Meng Wenhao heaved a sigh of relief and said gratefully. It was unknown whether he was thanking Li Zishuan for the invitation or thanking Li Zishuan for accepting the eggs. Chapter 233. Wenhao, Qin Ke, how did the two of you do in this exam? Inside the pavilion, Li Zishuan asked with a smile as he took a sip of the warm tea mixed with ice cubes after the few of them sat down. He didn't even have time to look at the exam paper that Su Hongji gave him. This was why only students with good grades were willing to visit a teacher's house. After visiting, the teacher would inevitably ask about your grades. Therefore, the number of times Chang Chimo came to visit Li Zishuan had significantly decreased. This fellow would also feel flustered and embarrassed. Meng Wenhao said, "Not bad." Li Tai waved his hand and said, "Not bad. Mister, you have so many carriages here. How about giving me one?" Ever since the little fatty had sat down, his eyes had been glued to the carriages, never leaving them. He had just gone in to try out the luxury RV, and he really wanted to try it out. Hehe, I'll give you a question. Qin Ke, if you can answer it, what's wrong with giving you a carriage? Li Zishuan said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Li Tai heard this, and his face fell. Question again. He was almost traumatized by Li Zishuan's questions. After being tortured so many times, Li Tai said that he had enough. He definitely wouldn't be fooled this time. No need. Mister, just tell me how much you want to sell this carriage for. I'll buy it with money. The little fatty shook his head like a rattle drum. Even if you beat him to death, he wouldn't be willing to answer Li Zishuan's deliberately difficult questions. Meng Wenhao, who was at the side, looked at Li Tai suspiciously. After attending classes together for so long, he had some understanding of Li Tai's temperament. He knew that Li Tai was a proud and arrogant person, but he didn't think that he would take the initiative to admit defeat. Could it be that the question set by Mr. was really that difficult? Meng Wenhao couldn't help but think. Li Zishuan faintly glanced at the little fatty and said, "There's no place to sell this car yet. Qin Ke, if you want it, wait a little longer." Li Tai stamped his feet and said, "There are more than 20 carriages here, right? Little Xian, can't you sell me one? I'm one of the owners of Qiziu Culture. Can't you take care of me?" Li Zishuan waved his hand in annoyance. All right, I'll give you one. Qin Ke, Why are you here today? If you're done, then let's go. Li Zixuan really wanted this little fatty to hurry up and finish what he wanted to say and get out of here. Otherwise, he would ask for whatever he saw. He was a dignified prince, yet he was acting like a bandit. He was really a disgrace to the Li family. Li Tai's wish was fulfilled. He didn't care about Li Zixuan's bad attitude at all. He said with a happy face, "Huh, teacher, did you forget? The newspaper is almost finished with the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality that you told me last time. You should tell me the next story today. Otherwise, there won't be any novels to publish tomorrow." Li Zixuan was stunned. Only then did he remember that there was such a matter. He nodded and said, "All right, then I'll tell you the novel today." Meng Wenhao was shocked and said in surprise, "The legend of a mortal's journey to immortality was actually written by teacher Wenhao. It's fine as long as you know. Don't tell anyone." Li Zixuan didn't want to cause too much trouble. He just wanted to quietly be a handsome man. "Yes, teacher," Meng Wenhao agreed. However, he thought about it and still hesitated. However, this student really doesn't understand. Teacher is so knowledgeable and has so much knowledge. Why would you write novels? Li Zixuan smiled meaningfully and said, "What's wrong with writing novels? Wenhao, do you think that writing novels is a cheap profession?" Meng Wenhao flatly denied, No, student doesn't mean that. You do. From the bottom of your heart, you think that writing novels isn't the right path. It's beneath your status as a scholar, right?" Li Zixuan said seriously. "Wenhao, you've studied hard for so many years. What is your dream?" Student Meng Wenhao opened his mouth but didn't know how to speak. He hadn't thought about this question before. Li Zixuan looked at Meng Wenhao's confused face and said slowly, "Do you want to earn money to improve your family's life? Or do you want to pass the imperial examination and enter the imperial court? Or do you want to become an official somewhere and benefit the people? Or do you want to write a book and create a legend that will last forever?" Meng Wenhao was in a daze for a long time before he said, "Teacher, this student not only wants my father, mother, and little sister to live a good life, but also wants to pass the imperial examination to benefit the people and let others remember me. Hey, you're really greedy." Li Tai took a sip of the iced wine and said with a smile. Meng Wenhao was a little embarrassed and speechless. Li Zixuan shook his head and said with a smile, "Wenhao, if a person can write a novel well, although it can't pass the imperial examination, it can make him rich. Moreover, through our Tang daily, one person can spread it to 10 to 100, and let him become famous overnight. It's also relying on one's ability to make a living. What reason do you have to discriminate against writing novels?" Li Tai said in disbelief. "Can writing novels make so much money?" Hee, of course. Chinke, if you don't believe me, just wait and see. As the scale of Tang daily becomes bigger and bigger, the sales will increase. At that time, whether it's writing articles for the newspaper or writing novels for the newspaper, the income will be very high. I think, at that time, there will be a lot of scholars who are constrained to write novels or articles." Li Zixuan said confidently. He had his own reasons for saying so. The entertainment in this era was very monotonous. The launch of the newspaper could not only bring people spiritual entertainment, but also provide a way for many scholars to make a living. Li Tai's eyes lit up and said excitedly, "Doesn't that mean at that time I will have many kinds of novels to read?" Li Zixuan and Meng Wenhao's mouth both twitched. This little fatty's thinking was always on a different channel than others. "Wenhao, think about it carefully. I don't think your thinking is good. There is no noble or lowly in the industry. The books you read didn't teach you to discriminate against others, did they? No matter what profession, those who rely on their own efforts to make a living are worthy of your respect. This includes farmers, merchants, and even waiters in restaurants. As a teacher, I don't wish to teach students who are arrogant, and don't eat the hardships of the world. Also, about your dream, whether it's for your family or for an official, if you can only choose one, I hope you can give priority to your family. I don't think a person who doesn't know how to be grateful and doesn't recognize his family could be a good official. I also don't want you to become a cold-blooded and heartless person for fame and fortune. Li Zixuan didn't pay attention to the little fatty's antics. Instead, he looked at Meng Wenhao and said sincerely, "Student will remember teacher's teachings." Meng Wenhao stood up and cupped his hands respectfully to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan nodded with gratification and said, "Okay, then let's start talking about novels." Chapter 234. Good story. Under the pavilion, Li Tai heard this and was so excited that he almost clapped. Meng Wenhao also showed an expression of interest. Previously, he was only surprised that Li Zixuan wrote The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. However, he was also quite fond of the story itself. It was not easy to find a young person in Chang and who did not know about The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Recently, there were even some items from The Legend of a Mortal appearing in the market. For example, the Eternal Spring Arts Secret Manual and Han Li's Mysterious Bottle. Of course, these items were not real, but they still attracted many mortal fans to buy them. The popularity of The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality could be seen from this. Where do we leave off last time? Li Zixuan saw that the two of them were willing to listen. Since he had nothing to do, he prepared to speak, but once he opened his mouth, he forgot where to start. Teacher said that Han Li dripped the green liquid from the small mysterious bottle onto a stalk of green 3 crowgrass. After 2 months, it grew into a stalk of rare 1,000-year-old 3 crowgrass. Li Tai had obviously done sufficient preparation. When he heard Li Zixuan's question, he answered without thinking. "Oh." Li Zixuan nodded his head. After recalling for a while, he began to speak. This time, the test was very successful. It seems that if one has the patience, they can continue to increase the age of the 3 crowgrass. However, to Han Li, this was not something that needed to be done. As long as he knew that this method was feasible, it would be enough. He did not need these ancient medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs that were a few hundred years old were enough for him to consume. After this long series of tests, Han Li could finally rest and think about it properly. At this time, it has been quite some time since Dr. Mo left the mountain. A servant had already delivered the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. This time, with Meng Wenhao here, the two of them took turns to write. Li Tai's work was much easier. From time to time, he would even have time to drink some iced tea. It was very comfortable. In the blink of an eye, 5 chapters had passed. As the plot unfolded step by step, Li Tai and Meng Wenhao gradually became immersed in the story. After Han, Li discovered the effects of the bottle. He was unable to cultivate freely. He still had to fight a battle of wits and courage with Dr. Mo, who wanted to take over his body. At this moment, Li Tai and Meng Wenhao finally understood how difficult Han Li's cultivation process was. This medicine is called insect corpse pill. It's not really a medicine, but an egg made from some kind of secret method. After you eat it, it will hide in your body for a year. Don't worry, it will be absolutely safe for a year, and it won't affect you from doing other things. After a year, as long as you take the special antidote, it will automatically dissolve, and there won't be any hidden dangers left. But if you don't take the antidote after a year, the egg will absorb enough nutrients and hatch out of its shell. It will then eat all the internal organs of the human body clean, causing the human to wail in pain for 3 days and 3 nights before slowly dying. Dr. Mo finally lost his patience with Han Li. In order to let Han Li reach the 4th level of the Eternal Spring Arts as soon as possible, he forced Han Li to swallow the insect corpse pill. When Li Tai and Meng Wenhao heard this, their faces were filled with anger, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Han Li was definitely not Dr. Mo's opponent. They could only watch from the sidelines and worry. Li Zixuan drank a few mouthfuls of the gentle wine and read 5 chapters of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality to them. Then, he clapped his hands and stood up. Okay, today's lecture will end here. We will continue tomorrow. Qing Ke, leave the manuscript here. The two of you can go back now. It's still early. Mister, please talk for a while more. Li Tai was enjoying listening to the lecture and was unwilling to end it like this. However, Li Zishuan did not fall for his tricks. If he continued talking for a while more, there would definitely be no end to it. I won't talk anymore. I won't talk anymore. Xiao Shi, quickly bring the things I asked you to prepare. He had asked Xiao Shi to prepare some pastries and intended to let Meng Wenhao bring them back. After all, he couldn't just go and not come back, right? It's here, young master. Here, Madam heard that your student was coming over and specially packed some of the best pastries and dried fruits in the residence. Madam was afraid of disturbing you, so she didn't come over personally. Xiao Shi handed over a heavy package and said with a smile. Previously, when Madam Li heard that her son's student had come to visit her son, she was even happier than Li Zishuan. She was filled with a sense of accomplishment. Hence, she asked Xiao Shi to prepare some dried fruits and pastries for Meng Wenhao to bring back. Li Zishuan took over the package and passed it to Meng Wenhao. Here, Wenhao, there's some dried fruits and pastries inside. They aren't worth much. Take it. As the saying goes, courtesy demands reciprocity. Since you brought gifts here, how can I let you leave empty-handed? Mister this, I don't. Meng Wenhao waved his hand and wanted to decline. You don't dare to decline a gift from an elder. Just take it since he asked you to. Furthermore, you can't even eat the pastries from Mister's house. Li Tai slapped Meng Wenhao's shoulder and said loudly, This, thank you, mister. Meng Wenhao had no choice but to bow and thank him. Hee, if there's nothing else, you can go back first. Li Zishuan waved his hand and smiled. The two of them then left. Qingke, why did you come back again? Li Zishuan asked Xiao Shi to help him tidy up the manuscripts. Just as he finished, he saw the little fatty Li Tai come again. He couldn't help but ask curiously, Xiao Xian, there's something I forgot to tell you. Once there were no outsiders around, he was unwilling to call Li Zishuan Mister anymore. At this moment, he ran over and said, Li Zishuan was too lazy to argue with him and asked, What's the matter? Li Tai took a deep breath and said, The 3 strategies you mentioned before have all been accepted by my father. The notice of reducing taxes by raising chickens has also been gradually sent to every state and county from today onwards. My father also ordered my uncle Li Xiaogong to prepare 500 ships to the South Sea within 5 days. Within 7 days, my uncle will lead 20,000 Navy troops to the South Sea to trade for food. Li Zishuan was shocked. He wasn't surprised that Li Tai knew about the locust plague prophecy. He was surprised that the imperial court had the ability to prepare 500 ships within 5 days. It seemed like the shipbuilding ability of this era wasn't as backward as he thought. And then? Qingke, why are you telling me all this? He was only slightly surprised, but he didn't have much of a reaction. Lier had accepted his suggestion and advice, but he didn't give him any rewards. Xiao Xian, the Tang daily that you started has already spread far and wide. My father wants you to advertise it in the newspapers to attract more civilian merchants to join the imperial court's food trade army. According to the Ministry of Revenue's calculations, the 500 ships of the imperial court, even if all of them are filled with food, will still be far from enough to deal with the locust plague. Little Fatty chuckled and revealed the most important purpose of his visit today. This joker had been listening to a novel and had almost forgotten about the important business. Li Zishuan heard this, and his expression became slightly serious. He nodded and said, That's fine. I'll ask Ma Zhou to prepare today. You'll be able to see the news about this in tomorrow's newspaper. In the face of the locust plague, Li Zishuan wasn't in a place where he could bargain or worry about personal gains and losses. If he could save one more person, it would be considered as accumulating merit. Chapter 235. Li Tai left in satisfaction. This satisfaction was not only because he had listened to the novel for the entire afternoon, but also because he had taken away a luxurious caravan that he had always dreamed of. After watching the little fatty leave, Li Zishuan called for Sanbao and ordered, Sanbao, get a few people to pull out 4 carriages and send them to the Qin Manor, Cheng Manor, Yuqi Manor, and Yo Manor. Tell them that it is inconvenient for me to go out during my confinement period. Ask those uncles to bear with me." "Yes, young master," Sanbao replied. Remember to be polite." "Oh, right. Pull out another carriage and send it to the East Palace." Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, "Yes." Sanbao accepted the order and left. "Xiaoxi, come and help me grind the ink." In the study room, Li Zixuan was writing rapidly. He was writing a letter to Ma Zhou and telling him some things. Not only was it about the recruitment of merchant ships to follow the army to the south that Li Tai had mentioned, but he also had many things to tell Ma Zhou about the Tang daily novel section. Meng Wenhao's attitude towards novel writers today was a warning to Li Zixuan. It seemed that whether it was in the modern era or the ancient era, many people thought that writing novels was not a proper occupation and was useless. No wonder the Tang Daily had been published for so long. Other than a few great scholars who wrote articles and argued with each other in the literary interaction section, there was basically no one who wrote novels for the Tang Daily. This would not do. If everyone thought of writing novels this way, then who would write novels in the future? Li Zixuan planned to stay at home and play cards with his wife, sleep, and read novels in the future. Therefore, he was writing a plan for Ma Zhou to hype up the rise of the novel and encourage everyone to write to the Tang Daily. At this moment, he felt that being grounded by Ma Zhou was not such a wonderful thing. Otherwise, he would have gone to the workshop personally and told Ma Zhou in person. There was no need to go through so much trouble. "All right, Xiaoxi, go and find someone. Since the workshop is not closed yet, ask him to ride a fast horse and quickly deliver this letter and these manuscripts to the workshop. Give them to Ma Zhou." After nearly an hour, Li Zixuan finished writing and put the letter into an envelope. Then, he put the rest of the manuscripts into a big paper bag and handed it to Xiaoxi. Fortunately, their house was not too far away from the workshop. Otherwise, the servant might not be able to make it back in time after delivering the letter at this hour. "Yes, young master." Strange Pavilion Workshop. Now, Ma Zhou had recruited many scholars to be his assistants. These scholars were mostly people from the Imperial College who had failed to pass the Imperial examinations. The editorial department of Strange Cultures Development. At this moment, they were deciding the layout of tomorrow's newspapers. "Steward Ma, do you think this layout is okay?" A middle-aged scholar in his 30s walked towards Ma Zhou with a few pieces of paper filled with words. Ma Zhou took it and looked at it seriously. After a while, he nodded and said, "Yes, the layout this time is very good. Let's follow this layout and pass it to the printing department. Let them start printing. After that, our editorial department will be off work today." "Okay." When the others saw Ma Zhou nod his head, they all heaved a huge sigh of relief. God knows how many times they were sent back by Ma Zhou every day because of typesetting problems. Although the salary given by core culture was high, the requirements were also high. Old Ma, Surly sent a letter over. The person who came was none other than Pang Feiji. This unlucky guy failed to ask for benefits from Sun Huayuan last time and was almost exposed. Later, Yuqi Jingda arranged for him to be the head of security at Strange Culture. In fact, he was just a high-class concierge. When Li Zixuan heard Yuqi Jingda's warning that day, he felt that not only Strange Culture, but also the workshop's safety needed to be taken seriously. Therefore, he let Pang Feiji lead this security team into two groups. One group was responsible for Strange Culture's safety, and the other group was responsible for the workshop's safety. Anyway, Yuqi Jingda said that this group of people would be under Li Zixuan's command in the future. There was nothing wrong with his arrangement. After this guy was arranged to come over, he usually ran between both sides. At Strange Culture, in order to make up for his image in Sun Huayuan's eyes, he was very diligent and rushed to do everything. At first, the rest of the people were worried sick. Pang Feiji was stealing their jobs. Therefore, these 2 days, Sun Huayuan clearly felt that the people in the workshop were much more enthusiastic than before. However, Pang Feiji was not a greedy person. When he was serious, he was quite loyal. After all, this guy had been in the military for so long. He was very experienced in dealing with people. In the past 2 days, There were quite a number of people who had received small favors from him. In private, everyone called him Brother G or Brother Chicken. At the workshop, Ma Zhou was one of the big bosses in the workshop. Of course, he was also someone Brother Chicken wanted to curry favor with. This way, even if Sun Huaiyuan told Lisa Xuan about his black material, there would be someone to speak up for him. He wouldn't die too miserably, right? Today, Brother Chicken came to the workshop to work. When he encountered the matter of delivering a letter to Ma Zhou, Brother Chicken did not hesitate to take over Song Xiaoxi's job and come personally to deliver the letter. Ma Zhou took the big bag of documents curiously. As he opened it, he said politely, "Thank you for your trouble, Pang Siggy. Hee, it's nothing. Take your time, Master Ma. I'll take my leave first." Brother Chicken knew very well that he had to make up for his sins even if he had to kneel down. Now, that Sun Huaiyuan had something on him. In strange culture in the workshop, he had to act like a grandson until the end. Okay, Ma Zhou nodded. Brother Chicken slowly left. Ma Zhou opened the paper bag and took out the envelope and the manuscript of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. He first put the manuscript aside, then opened the envelope. He opened the letter and read it seriously. Other than the occasional sound of other people packing up, the room was silent for a while. After a while, Ma Zhou put away the letter and said to the few editors who were packing up to go home, "Don't pack up anymore. Don't send the typesetting just now to the printing department. Redo it all. I'm afraid none of you will be able to go back tonight." Why is this happening? Stu or Ma, what happened? If we don't go back now, will we stay tonight? Yeah, if we don't leave now, there will be a curfew later. The editors were dumbfounded. Even though they knew that Ma Zhou had a high position in the workshop, in the face of such a rude request, they could not help but refute. Ahem, the boss has new instructions. Tomorrow's newspaper has to be redone. Everyone, work harder. Once you're done, you can rest in the workshop. Today's salary will be 5 times the usual salary. It was indeed unkind to ask people to work overtime at the last minute. Ma Zhou thought about it and decided that he could only use money to increase their work enthusiasm. Wow, 5 times. Let's do it. Let's do it. Chapter 236. Tisk TSK. Xiaoxian sure knows how to enjoy life. This carriage will be my ride in the future. Haha. Chung Mansion. The servants of the Li residence were ordered to deliver the limousine. Chung Yaojin saw that the carriage's design was strange. Originally, he just wanted to take a look. After all, he liked to ride a horse and not sit in a carriage. But when he saw it, he immediately fell in love with the luxurious interior. He comfortably sat on the sofa and did not want to get down. "Dad, this carriage was given to me by Xiaoxian. I thought you don't like to ride in carriages?" Chung Chumo followed him into the carriage. When he heard the second half of Chung Yaojin's words, his face fell and he gloomily said, "Wulsh *T. Did Xiaoxian say that this carriage is for you? You're clearly giving it to me, okay? Besides, I used to like riding horses and not riding carriages, but that's because the carriages in the past can't be compared to this one." Chung Yaojin sat on the sofa and patted the table in front of him. He said to Chung Yaojin angrily, "Dad, when the first carriage was made, I asked Xiaoxian for it. Now that this one is here, you can't take it for yourself." Chung Chumo was not willing to give up just like that. "Oomph. You old geezer. How dare you snatch things from your son?" At this time, a slightly stout woman in purple came up. She was Chung Chumo's mother, Chung Yaojin's wife, Pei Tsuyun, the daughter of Shanghai Pass's Commander-in-Chief Pei Renji, and the elder sister of Sui and Tang's third hero Pei Yuanqing. For thousands of years, the Pei family had produced great figures in each generation. It was indeed a wonder in Chinese and foreign history. In China's historical dramas, there were several dramas that depicted the Pei family, such as West Lake, Li Huinyang, Pei Heng's encounter with the immortal, and The Legend of the White Snake. In the famous drama, The Legend of the White Snake, Fa Hai was the son of the Tang Dynasty politician and calligrapher Pei Xiu. In history, Fa Hai was a positive character. However, after the novels of the Ming and Qing dynasties came out, Fahai became a negative character. A while ago, Madame Pei brought her second son, Cheng Chuyang, back to her hometown to visit her parents. She had not been in Chang'an for a long time. Madam, I was just joking with Chon Yo. Huh. Cheng Yaojin quickly got up and awkwardly smiled. Madame Pei snorted. Only now did she look at the interior of the carriage. Gradually, the envy in her eyes became stronger and stronger. The interior of this car is so beautiful. This seat is so comfortable. Master, with this carriage, in the future, this concubine will bring Chu Mo and Chu Liang back home to visit their parents. This concubine will not have to suffer the hardships of traveling. Madame Pei sat here and there in the carriage. After a while, she also liked this carriage. From her words, it seemed like she also wanted this carriage. Cheng Chumo had a tragic look on his face. He had just chased away a vicious wolf, and now a fierce tiger had appeared. Qin Manor. Huayu. Although this carriage is comfortable, I still prefer to ride a horse. This carriage is for you to use. Qin Xiong sat on the sofa in the carriage and took a sip of tea as he spoke to Qin Huayu. Recently, his health had improved a lot. He had no problem playing with a gun, riding a horse, or dabbling in hunting. If this carriage had been delivered a month ago, Qin Xiong would have gladly accepted it. However, he had finally recovered from his illness. How could he be willing to stay in a carriage? Thank you, father, Qin Huayu said happily. Qin Xiong did not care about this carriage, but it did not mean that Qin Huayu did not care about it. He had been eyeing Li Zixuan's carriage for a long time. Yes, although this carriage is comfortable, Huayu, you must not lose your ambition because of it. Qin Xiong stroked his beard and smiled. Yes. Eastern Palace. After the carriage was delivered, Li Changxian immediately went in to enjoy it. Then, he sat on the sofa and did not want to get down. This thing was more comfortable than a bed. Why is there such a big carriage in front of Brother Crown Prince's palace? Changle's voice came from outside the carriage. Li Changxian opened his eyes and shouted, Changle, I'm here. Brother Crown Prince, why are you sitting in a carriage for nothing? Changle suddenly heard Li Changxian's voice and was shocked. Then, she said, Brother Crown Prince, I'm coming in too. After saying that, the little girl nimbly jumped into the carriage. Then, she opened the curtains and was dazzled by the luxurious interior. Changle, why are you here? Sit down and have a cup of tea. Li Changxian stood up and said. Changle nodded. She walked to the opposite side of Li Changxian and exclaimed, Brother Crown Prince, your carriage is really big. It's like a small room inside. The thing to sit on is so soft. How is it? Do you like it, Changle? Li Changxian poured a cup of tea for his sister and said with a smile. Yes, I like it. Brother Crown Prince, are you giving this carriage to me? When Changle heard Li Changxian's question, her two small eyes curved into two small crescents. Usually, after Li Changxian's words, he would give her a carriage. No. Li Changxian's face darkened. He hurriedly shook his head and said, I only said that if Changle likes it, you can come and sit here often. I didn't say that I would give it to you. He had just enjoyed it for a while. How could he bear to give this carriage to someone else? Even if it was his most beloved sister. If this kind of carriage was sold in the market, he would be willing to buy one for Changle. However, the problem was that he had already sent people to inquire about it. Obviously, there were no shops that sold this kind of carriage. Brother Crown Prince is so stingy. Changle wrinkled her cute little nose and said unhappily. Li Changxian was sweating profusely. However, he was somewhat quick-witted. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Changle, if you want this carriage, you can ask Li Zixuan for it. I heard from Qin Ke that the Li residence has many of these carriages. Now, in the entire Tang Dynasty, only Li Zixuan has these carriages. It is said that he specially built a batch of carriages to pick up his bride when he gets married. This move is called diverting trouble. Li Changxian thought proudly in his heart. When Changle heard this, she didn't clamor to ask Li Zixuan for a carriage as Li Changxian expected. Instead, he saw the little girl leaning on the table with one hand supporting her cheek. she said with a yearning expression. Brother Xiaoxian is so good to Sister Yushi. I wonder if Changle's future husband will be so good to Changle. Brother Crown Prince, it is said that the imperial family has no familial ties. The children of the imperial family have no love and have to follow their parents' orders. However, Changle doesn't want to be forced by father to marry someone she doesn't like. Brother Crown Prince, will you help Changle in the future? Li Chengxian looked at his sister's innocent face and longing eyes. He patted his sister's hand and comforted her. Don't worry, Changle. Brother Crown Prince won't watch you be forced to marry. Changle smiled and said, Yes, yes. Brother Crown Prince is so nice. This soft couch is so comfortable. When Changle goes back later, can I bring it back to Changle Palace? Li Chengxian. Chapter 237. Newspaper for sale. Newspaper for sale. The freshly printed Tang Dynasty Daily. Today's headline. His Majesty wants to send Navy to escort fleet to the south to trade for food. Civilian merchant ships can also sign up. Early morning. The cheerful voice of a newspaper boy woke up the people who had just woken up and were still in a daze. Today's headline was exceptionally attractive. First of all, this was the first time the people had learned about the latest decree from the imperial court through this method. Secondly, the decree itself was already very attractive. Sending an army to escort merchant ships was something that the people and merchants had never heard of before. Xiao Lu, go buy me a copy of a newspaper. A voice full of vigor came from a luxurious carriage. Yes, master. Today, after hearing the headlines in the newspapers, the merchants who were interested in the news sent their servants to buy the newspapers. Zuatian Restaurant. Within 5 days, the imperial court will prepare a fleet of 500 ships. 7 days later, Hejin County Prince Li Shaogong will personally lead a navy of 20,000 to escort the fleet to the south. They will trade silk and porcelain for food. In a small country like Nanyang, rice is ripe 3 times a season. Spices are everywhere. A piece of silk or porcelain can be exchanged for dozens of loads of food and countless spices. The barren land of the South Sea is actually so rich? Brother Jihua, you have traveled extensively and are very knowledgeable. Is what the newspaper says true? A plump middle-aged man in a blue shirt was reading the newspaper. He couldn't help but ask in surprise. The skinny man opposite him was reading the newspaper seriously. He didn't even raise his head when he heard the question. It should be true. I have heard many seafarers talking about this before. Moreover, this newspaper is from Chitsu culture, and Chitsu culture is Lord Li's business. I am very sure that this news is true. These two were the regulars of Zuatian Restaurant who had tasted the immortal drunken wine. They were also wealthy merchants. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to Zuatian Restaurant every day. Then why don't we see any merchant ships going south to purchase goods? Feng Zhihua said impatiently. Brother Shifan, think about it. The vast ocean is filled with countless dangers. There are also pirates. Which merchant ships would dare to go out to sea? Oh, I see. But now, these problems are no longer problems. Shifan, continue reading. The ministers of the imperial court all agreed that 500 ships were far from enough. They specially recruited merchant ships from the common folk to accompany the army to the south. The army will protect the merchant ships, and the merchants will only have to pay 5% of their profits to the imperial court. Merchants who were willing to join the imperial court's fleet had to report to the Ministry of War within 7 days and send their ships to the Bar River in the east of the city. After 7 days, they would head south with the army. This was a business that was guaranteed to make a profit. And it's a huge profit. Feng Zhihua sighed after reading the news. Brother Zhihua, do you want to participate as well? Little brother, I remember that your family has more than a dozen large ships that often transport goods on the Grand Canal, right? Liao Shifan added. Feng Zhihua pondered for a moment. Then he slapped the table and said, Participate? Why wouldn't I participate? Shifan, if you want to go, I have a way to get you 8 big ships in a short period of time. It's up to you if you're willing. If you trust me, then come with me to the south. You'll definitely make 10 times the profit. Liao Shifan said happily. Of course I trust Brother Jihua. I'm willing to go south with you. Haha, that's great. I'll have to get a few more ships and buy some porcelain and silk. Let's get started. Brother Jihua, wait. There's another piece of news at the end. The imperial court has issued a decree to encourage the common folk to raise chickens on a large scale. For every 100 chickens raised by a household, their taxes will be reduced by 10% next year. When the rent is collected next year, each village will calculate the number of chickens in each household and report it to the local government. The government will reduce the taxes based on the number of chickens reported. Brother Jihua, what does the imperial court mean by this decree? I don't understand it anymore. Feng Jihua paused and read the news carefully. He couldn't help but frown. I don't understand the imperial court's intention either. Liao Shifan thought for a moment. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Brother Jihua, I think there's something to be gained from this. Why don't we sell some chickens? Feng Jihua was stunned for a moment, but after a moment, he shook his head and said, No, we don't have time recently. Compared to the small amount of money we can earn from selling the chicken seedlings, we can earn more by preparing the merchant ships to go south. That's dozens of times more profit. Shifan, you should seriously prepare to go south. Liao Sifan thought about it and agreed. He nodded and said, Brother Jihua is right. We can't lose the big picture for the small. Ergawa, I bought a newspaper when I went into the city today. Read it to me. What's in a newspaper? Lu Village. A dark-skinned man in his 30s called over a naughty kid who was about 10 years old. Okay, second Uncle Lu, let me read the newspaper. I haven't read today's legend of a mortal's journey to immortality yet. The naughty kid said excitedly when he heard that there was a free newspaper to read. It should be a free novel to read. Smack. The dark-skinned man hit Gua's head with the rolled-up newspaper and scolded him jokingly. Read your head. You only know how to read novels all day. You don't even know how to go to school. If your father finds out, he'll beat your ass. Read to me what's in today's newspaper first, then read the novel. Oh. The naughty kid rubbed his head and answered in a muffled voice. Then, he took the newspaper and asked in confusion, Second Uncle, where do I start? Start from that headline. Today, I heard the newspaper boy say that the imperial court is recruiting merchant ships to go south. Read it quickly, kid. The dark-skinned man thought for a while and said, Ergua searched for a while and found today's headline. He started reading. Within 5 days, the imperial court will prepare a fleet of 500 ships. 7 days later, Hejian County Princely Shaogong will personally lead a navy of 20,000 to escort the fleet to the south. They will exchange silk and porcelain for food. TSK, too bad I don't have a ship. Otherwise, I could follow the imperial court's army to Nanyang and make a fortune. Ergawa, continue reading. Next one. The dark-skinned man sighed after listening to the headline. The imperial court has issued a decree to encourage people to raise chickens on a large scale. For every 100 chickens raised by a family, the tax next year will be reduced by 10%. When the rent is collected next year, the number of chickens in each family will be counted and reported to the local county office. The county office will reduce the corresponding tax according to the reported number. Stop. Ergawa, are you sure you're not mistaken? Is that really what it says? The dark-skinned man was as excited as a 300-pound child. He pressed on Ergawa's shoulder and said excitedly, It hurts, second uncle. Let go of me first. The naughty kid was in so much pain that tears were about to flow out. The dark-skinned man let go of his hand embarrassedly and said, Cough, then quickly take a look again. Is it like what you said just now? The naughty kid looked at it again. After confirming that there was no mistake, he said affirmatively, Second uncle, that's what it says. I'm sure I'm not mistaken. Hey, second uncle, where are you going? Don't you want a newspaper? Haha, kid's mother, give me money. I want to go to the city to buy chicken seedlings. The dark-skinned man's excited cheers spread far and wide. Today was destined to not be peaceful. The 2 imperial court decrees written in Tang daily were like a storm that swept through the entire Chang and city and the surrounding villages in an instant. Chapter 238. The people who were swept away by the storm of the new policy started to move. Some bought chickens, some looked for boats. People came and went on the streets. It was very lively. Boss, do you still have any chicks? What? No more? The market has only been open for less than 2 hours. How can there be no more? In the East Market, a man in a gray undershirt was shouting at a vendor who was selling chicks. Boss, hey, don't go. How much are the remaining chicks? I want them all. What? 100 coins for one? Why don't you go rob a bank? Wasn't it 80 coins a while ago? Buy it or not. If you don't buy it now, it will be more expensive in the future. Previously, the Li and Chung families had bought chicks without restraint. At one time, the price of the chicks had been raised from 50 to 125 coins. Later, after Wang Rini had transported 80,000 chicks from the south, the Li and Chung families no longer bought chicks. The market of chicks in Chang had gradually calmed down. The price of chicks had gradually dropped from 125 coins to 125 coins. Now that the imperial court had introduced the policy of reducing taxes on raising chickens, the people were crazily fighting for chicks. Many chicken vendors' stocks were quickly sold out. After the other chicken vendors came to their senses, they quickly organized people to buy chicks from other places. At the same time, they raised the price of chicks, intending to make a fortune. Hee, you mortals! So pitiful. Mei Jun, who had come to Chang and to sell eggs today, looked at the villagers who were rushing to buy chicks and sighed with a superior expression. Since Mei Village had been divided into Li Zishuan's fief, they only needed to pay rent to Li Zishuan, the big landlord, every year. Moreover, Li Zishuan had already introduced the policy of reducing the rent on raising chickens. Therefore, the policy of the imperial court had no effect on them. Naturally, they did not need to rush to buy chicks with others. Big Mouth Mei, why are you showing off here? Why don't you go and grab a place to sell eggs? Be careful that your wife won't forgive you when you go back. It was a skinny hand that suddenly patted Mei Jun's shoulder. Then came the slightly teasing voice of Second Master Lu. Compared to a few months ago, Second Master Lu looked more hale and hearty. Perhaps the old people would be more energetic once they had something to do. Second Master Lu, why are you making fun of me again? Mei Jun turned around and grinned. You brat, why are there so many people buying chicken seedlings today? I just heard someone say that the imperial court issued a decree today to encourage the people to raise chickens. 100 chickens can reduce the tax by 10%. There's such a good thing. However, our Plum Village has long enjoyed such treatment. Moreover, it's free chicken seedlings. Second Master Lu said with a complacent smile, but his words provoked too much hatred. A man next to him immediately glared at him and said, "What did you say? Your village has been receiving such treatment for a long time, and the chicken seedlings are free? How could I lie to you? It's all thanks to Lord Li. Wang Foreign, why is your family's boat still idling at the dock? Why aren't you reporting to the Ministry of War? Why do we need to report it? Didn't you read today's newspaper? The imperial court wants to send troops to escort the fleet to the south to trade for food. The food in the south is cheap, and so are the spices. We can take the silk and porcelain and follow the imperial court's army to Nanyang to purchase goods. When we come back and sell them, we will definitely make a huge profit." Really? But what if the newspaper is a scam? Silly. Don't you know who publishes this newspaper? Why would Lord Li, who is rich, lie to you? How much are you worth? Then wait for me, brother. My family has 10 big boats. Let's follow the imperial court's army to Nanyang to get some soup. This kind of conversation was definitely not the only one in Chang'an today. Businessmen often had the keenest sense of smell. The capital market had always been turbulent. Now, with the imperial court's decree, how could there not be a huge wave? Gi Lane, at Meng Wenhao's house. Father, why are you back so early today? Meng Wenhao was on leave today and teaching his little sister to write at home. Suddenly, the courtyard door was pushed open and a thin and dark middle-aged man came in. He was not tall, and his body was not strong, but his slightly bent spine seemed to be full of infinite strength, as if he could hold up the sky. His gray clothes were full of sand and sand. It was impossible to tell whether he was wearing clothes or sand. Meng Wenhao heard the sound and looked up. Seeing that it was his father, he patted his little sister's head and hurried to greet him and said happily, "Well, there's not much work on Murky Street today. I finished my work and came back early." "How? Are you still teaching Yaya to write?" The middle-aged man took off his shirt full of sand, revealing his dark, thin, but very strong chest. He smiled and said to the son in front of him, who he was most proud of, "Well, father, Yaya has learned a lot of words recently. I also taught Yaya the pinyin invented by our teacher. In the future, Yaya may know more words than some rich kids." Meng Wenhao showed a rare, innocent expression of a child and asked for credit from his father. Of course, Meng Wenhao's father didn't know what pinyin was, but he knew that his son was very good at reading and what he said must be reasonable. He said well to Meng Wenhao and went to wash his hands next to the well with a smile. At this time, the little girl in the house ran out and said with a giggle, "Father, father, you are back." The middle-aged man wiped his face, and out of nowhere, a sugar figurine wrapped in paper appeared. Then he squatted down, squinted his eyes, and smiled at his daughter. "Come, Yaya, this is what I bought for you. Eat it quickly, and don't tell your mother." Yaya's slightly yellowed and malnourished face was like a blooming flower. It was so brilliant that even the sun paled in comparison. It was as if she was the most beautiful angel in the world. The little girl opened her small red mouth and revealed a pair of small rabbit teeth. She giggled, her voice as clear and melodious as a silver bell. It's a candy man. Father is so good." Yaya happily took the candy man from Meng Wenhao's hand and opened the oil paper. Looking at the lifelike and cute little figure, the little girl hesitated for a moment and handed it back. She said in a crisp voice, "Father works hard to support the family. Father works the hardest. Father, eat first." Meng Wenhao's father looked at his daughter's innocent but persistent face and couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat. He sent the candy man to his daughter's mouth and forced a smile. "Father has long been sick of it. Yaya, eat it quickly." "Oomph. Father, you are lying. You used to say that, but you have never eaten it. Father doesn't eat it, and Yaya doesn't eat it either." The little girl seemed to have become smarter recently and didn't fall for it all. Okay. Father will eat a little." Meng Wenhao's father had no choice but to gently eat a corner of the candy man. The faint sweetness in his mouth couldn't wash away the bitterness in his heart. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked at his daughter with mixed feelings. "Brother, you have to go to school every day. Brother also needs to eat first." When Yaya saw that her father really ate it, she immediately sent the candy man to Meng Wenhao's side happily. With a lesson learned, Meng Wenhao didn't refuse. He gently bit off a corner of the candy man and patted his little sister's braids. He smiled and said, "Okay, brother has eaten too. Yaya, go play elsewhere." Okay. Father, did something happen?" Meng Wenhao saw that Yaya had walked far away and then looked at his worried father and asked. Meng Wenhao's father's expression froze as he hurriedly said, "No, nothing. Father, something must have happened. Can you hide it from me? Tell me if you have something, and we will think of a solution together." Meng Wenhao's father thought for a moment and said hesitantly, "However, I might have to go on a long trip in a few days. I might be gone for 2 to 3 months. Father, where are you going?" Meng Wenhao asked anxiously. "Going overseas." Meng Wenhao's father stuttered and finally revealed the truth. However, this sentence was like a bolt from the blue, leaving Meng Wenhao stunned on the spot. Chapter 239. Father, why did you suddenly think of going overseas? Meng Wenhao was stunned for a while before asking with difficulty. Although he had never been to the sea, he knew that there were hidden dangers everywhere. Today, Boss Feng suddenly told me that he has a fleet going Southeast Asia to purchase goods in 7 days. He needs to recruit a large number of crew members, and the remuneration is very generous. I thought about it and agreed. Father Meng slowly told the truth. Father, how can you agree? You don't know how to operate a ship? Besides, the sea is so dangerous. You little brat, are you looking down on your father? Who said that I don't know how to operate a ship? However, don't worry. I'm good at swimming. I'll definitely be fine. When I come back 3 months later, our family will be able to live a good life. The remuneration that Boss Fong gave me this time is equivalent to 3 years of carrying goods at the dock. Father Meng patted his son's shoulder and said with a look of longing, "That won't do. Father, we can slowly earn money. I will be able to pass the imperial examinations next year. When that time comes, I will also have a salary. Why do you have to take such a big risk to go to the sea? Even if my mother knows, she won't let you go." Meng Wenhao grabbed his father's arm, afraid that he would never see him again if he let go. He said anxiously. Father Meng broke free from his son's hand and said firmly, "As for your mother, I will naturally tell her. This matter is settled. I have already spoken to Boss Fong. After settling down at home these few days, I will go out to sea with them. However, you don't have to worry. This time, the civilian caravan will follow the Imperial Court's 20,000 navy to the south. There will definitely be no worries." After saying that, he ignored his son's persuasion and went straight to get water for a bath. Unexpectedly, today's newspaper not only caused a hurricane among the farmers and merchants, but the young people were also shocked by a few lines of words in a corner of the newspaper. "Damn, you can play like this?" Sun family. Sun Zifin was leaning on the couch and reading a record of a mortal's journey to immortality peacefully. When he saw the end of the 3rd chapter, he was still a little unsatisfied. Who knew that there were a few lines of small red words at the end of the article? He took a closer look and was so shocked that he almost swallowed his tongue. He saw the words written on it. "Extravagant extravagance, moved to tears. Sir's talent deserves this reward." Lisa Xuan from Chong and Yongla Lane rewarded Leather Knight with 1,000 strings of cash. This book is too well written. Let's reward you and hope that the following chapters will be even more exciting. There is also a notice that read, "Congratulations to Li Zexuan for becoming the first Golden Alliance leader in the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality." From today onwards, the Tang Daily would launch a tipping function. Readers could go to the Chitiu Pavilion Workshop to tip their favorite novels or articles. In the future, the editorial department of the Tang Daily would set up many offices in various regions. Readers who lived far away from the workshop could also head to the offices nearby to tip. The Tang Daily's editorial department would split the reward 50 to 50 and send it to the author. The person who gave the reward would also receive the corresponding title of the work. The specific level of the title would be determined by the amount of reward. Apprentice, 1 coin and above. Apprentice, 500 coins and above. Disciple, 2 strings and above. Deacon, 5 strings and above. Branch leader, 10 strings and above. Hall leader, 20 strings and above. Protector, 30 strings and above. Elder, 40 strings and above. Sect leader, 50 strings and above. Grandmaster, 70 strings and above. Silver Alliance leader, 100 strings and above. Golden Alliance leader, 1,000 strings and above. The corresponding badge of the title would also be awarded to the readers who tipped. This badge was specially made and would definitely not be counterfeited. The names of the top 10 readers who tipped the most will be hung at the bottom of the book. In addition, the Tang Daily is sincerely open to all scholars in Tang Dynasty. Once the novel is accepted, in addition to the split of the reward, we will also give you a guaranteed base price of at least 5 coins per 1,000 words. The salary will be paid monthly and will be sent to you by a special person. You are welcome to submit your work. Tis TSK. Mr. Lee is really rich. He gave out 1,000 strings of cash just like that. Even if we split it 50 to 50, Leather Knight would get 500 strings of cash. Sun Zifan sighed with a face full of envy. 500 strings of cash was a huge sum of money. In the entire Chong and city, except for a few people, no one would look down on 500 strings of cash and casually give it away. It was the same for the Sun family. F***CK. If writing novels is so profitable, then why do I still need to go to school? I might as well write novels. Sun Zifin slapped his head and was about to go to the study to write novels. This guy really had no idea. If writing novels was so easy, then in the modern age of the internet, wouldn't everyone be able to become a god? Novels were easy to read, but when you actually started writing, you would realize that it was very difficult. It was definitely not something that could be written just by slapping one's head. Prince Wei's residence. Li Tai was also reading the latest issue of the newspaper. Yesterday, he had told Li Zishuan about Li Heir's intentions. Today, he purposely checked to see if the government decree was published in the newspaper. After discovering that it was published, Li Tai comfortably laid on the sofa and began reading novels. Although he had heard the plot of the novel in today's newspaper, the feeling of reading a novel and listening to a novel was completely different. What? You asked where the sofa Li Tai was lying on came from? Wasn't this simple? After this little fatty came back yesterday, he had someone move the sofa from the carriage that Li Zishuan gave him into the palace. In his mind, when the carriage needed it in the future, he could just get someone to move it up. As Li Tai read, he naturally saw the red words at the end of the newspaper. This guy's face was instantly filled with black lines. F***CK. Someone said that this king is thick-skinned. I think Li Zishuan is the thick-skinned one. Selling and praising himself. This is what you call selling and praising yourself. How shameless. Li Tai excitedly slammed the table and stood up. He pointed at the newspaper and scolded Li Zishuan. Others might not know who the Leather Knight was, but how could Li Tai not know? It was precisely because he knew that Li Zishuan had shamelessly tipped him that he was so excited. It was as if he had met a soulmate. Everyone was so shameless that they could be friends. Li Tai rubbed his chin as he thought. Moments later, he gritted his teeth and called a guard over. He instructed, "Take this king's warrant and go to the treasury to retrieve 1,000 strings of cash. Send it to the Strange Interest Pavilion Workshop. Tell them that this king is rewarding the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality." The black-clothed guard was dumbfounded. He was definitely thinking, has the king of Wei gone crazy? Go. What are you standing there for? Have you gone crazy? The guard's face twitched slightly. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Yes." Then he quickly left. Li Tai nodded. He was not stupid. After the initial shock, he quickly understood Li Zishuan's intention. This was to attract scholars to join the mighty novel industry. Thinking about the various interesting novels to read in the future, Li Tai's heart trembled with excitement. Moreover, he himself liked The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality very much. After seeing Li Zishuan snatch the first Golden Alliance Master title, he was a little unhappy. How could he be willing to give up the second Golden Alliance Master title? Golden Alliance Master, this title sounded domineering. Although Li Tai felt the pinch of giving away 1,000 strings of cash, it was still a man's pride and a Buddha's desire to burn incense. Moreover, he still had 20% of the shares in Strange Interest Culture. It was considered an investment. When the time came, more people would be attracted to write novels and read newspapers. Li Tai would also get more money. What was there to be afraid of? Li Tai thought cunningly. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.